Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll get into it. Don't want to blow my observation in the pre-show.
No, you could just start the show, though.
A podcast currently facing a 27% tariff imposed by the Donald John Trump administration. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I'm a little sad about
Lori's
baseball.
a little sad about baseball. Tonight is Monday. It's the 7th of April, 2025. You have a good weekend, Abe?
Yeah. I actually just got back from Charleston, South Carolina. I was there for...
Oh, yeah? A little weekend trip?
Yeah, just a nice little solo drive down, just about 5 hours. Not too bad. I've never been to Charleston before. It's a nice little city.
Have you been to Savannah? Did you go to Savannah?
I've been to Savannah. I did not go to Savannah this time, but I've been to Savannah a few times.
I just needed to know that before you talked about Charleston.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking city. I went on some tours. I went to the museum. That's some sort of African American museum. Something about the Gullah Geechee people. There's a whole thing.
Ah, yes.
I don't think I'm
hear about them all the time on the news magazine programs.
Yeah, and then I went to Fort Sumter, which was like right there. Got on a little ferry. It's pretty nice. By the way, I will say, on the way back from the trip, started raining. Earlier last week, it was raining. But during my stay in Charleston, you cannot have asked for better weather. Just like
nice
breezy, like high 70s, low 80s, like not unbearably hot. But you can just
That's
go on a
unbearably
t-shirt.
Hot for me,
No,
but I'm glad you liked it.
But with the breeze, it was like, it was like you would not have noticed that it was like in the 80s. But it was very nice weather, good walking around. Basically, outside of my designated things like the museum and the Fort Sumter, I just kind of walked everywhere. There was that church where that crazy guy shot those people. Walked by that. It's like centrally located. I had no lay of the land, so I didn't know where any of this stuff was. But like, it's right where the city center is.
And you said you went down there, and anytime.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me that South Carolina has such a large part of South Carolina is south of such a large part of Georgia.
Right.
Like especially the populated parts of Georgia. Like, because, the metro Atlanta area where the overwhelming majority of people who live in Georgia live, you're north of, like, most of the, like, Hilton Head and Charleston and, like, the destinations where people often go in South Carolina, which is weird. Like, just in my head.
Especially with Charleston, it is farther back in time, so somehow farther south than Atlanta.
Is that how that works?
It's one in particular with Charleston. Yes, it is. It is going back in time.
I don't know anything about is Charleston particularly backwards in that way? Abe, did you feel uncomfortable in any?
For like a southern city, there weren't a lot of black people. I mean, there were in the museum, the African American Museum.
The African American, overrepresented there.
So like sequestered in a particular area, right?
Right, and if you look at like on Google Maps, the museum and the docking area where you can get on a ferry to Fort Sumter, they're like a stone's throw away. It's like literally like a 2-minute walk, and everybody on that Fort Sumter, there were about 300 people on that ferry. I think I was the only one that was black.
Wow.
On that.
It's like going to my brother's wedding in Missouri.
Yeah. but it was just jarring because I did those things back to back on Saturday morning, and like it was just noticeable. I just being in Atlanta and like New Orleans and Memphis and other cities.
Or Savannah.
Yeah, Savannah. It was just that was the noteworthy. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was Final Four weekend, March Madness, and it's easy to make friends with people if you just are out and about. So like I caught on with some folks who were also watching the game, shitting on Florida, and one of the people that were like, "Oh, I'm rooting for Duke." And I was like, "Oh, you went to Duke?" I was like, "No." And I was like, "What's the deal?" It's like, "Oh, they got this great white player, Cooper Flag."
this person said to you they have this great white player. This was a fellow white.
Yeah,
I'm
fellow
guessing?
white. It was very very amusing.
So going back to the thing I said,
Yeah, maybe Lori was
that's what I meant.
awfully right.
And
It is backwards in time.
Cooper Flag is such a fucking white basketball player from Duke kind of name, isn't it?
It is. It was great, but the way that that team collapsed at the end, a very healthy lead going into the last 2 minutes, and they ended up choking it. But it was amusing overall. The people there are nice. I have nothing to say negative about the Charleston people.
I saw
They're known for being very polite.
Yes,
It's the most polite city in America.
Yeah, everywhere you go, like you would strike a conversation with anybody, just like, "Hey, what's your deal? We're here to visit our kid. He goes to the College of Charleston." It's like just like telling me their whole story. It's like I'm just waiting for the elevator, and they're just yapping away. It's like, all right.
You stay at a hotel? You stay at Airbnb? What'd you do?
Stayed at some hotel, some Holiday Inn in the city. It's pretty good.
Well, good. I saw speaking of Cooper Flag, saw a post that went viral highlighting Cooper Flag's impressive Duke GPA, which is apparently a 4.0.
Oh, good man.
What's his major?
I have no idea. Don't care. But the post, which was from some like Duke booster account, no doubt, was like 4.0, and it listed his stats in the, like, I guess he had a pretty good last game there, a bunch of points.
Yeah.
It says, and a 4.0 GPA, is there anything he can't do? And it's like, well, funny you should ask, but fucking advanced to the championship game, obviously.
Not entirely his doing. I mean, the rest of the team just kind of choked.
Yeah.
But he was on it, yeah.
So championship game is tonight or tomorrow night?
It's tonight.
Tonight, now.
Happening right now, or probably 9 o'clock if I had to guess. I watched zero, and will have watched zero moments of the tournament. I don't think I've even seen.
This is my most successful basketball year. I and you. None basketball.
Well, NBA playoffs are starting a week or two from now, I think. Not too long from now.
Sure, but this was a big accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
If you have any animus towards the Duke program, just the last 2 minutes is all you need. Just things fall apart.
Yeah.
I don't.
All right. Well, that's good. Sounds like you had a nice. What's next on the list of cities to visit?
Pittsburgh, PA. You know, it's interesting. I was telling Simon, one of my friends, about every year, at least going back to last year, find an occasion to see a city I've never been to, like a drivable city. And I mentioned Charleston, and he's like, "Oh yeah, great." And then Pittsburgh, and he had this visceral reaction, like, "Why the fuck you want to go to Pittsburgh?" I was like,
Pittsburgh's nice.
That's the first time someone has said negative things about either people are neutral, "Oh, okay," or they'll say Pittsburgh is great.
He had a particularly bad time at a layover in Pittsburgh one time.
I
What
imagine
is
it
the
has
issue?
to do something with that. I'm driving up there. I don't know what the airport is like. It doesn't matter to me.
So Pittsburgh, when we were kids, teenagers,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh was notoriously shitty.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was like Detroit and Cleveland. It was just that place. And then before I moved to Athens, I went to see a Bright Eyes concert there with my friends Abby and Kathy. And we had a really nice time. We got lost, and a cop was incredibly friendly and helpful to us, and not what are you young kids doing? He was like, "Oh no, you're trying to go. No, you should get back in the car. You're way far. That's the other side of town." And we just had a really nice time. All the people were nice. All the neighborhoods seemed fine. And we were like, why does everybody hate Pittsburgh? And then in the ensuing decade, you'd see headlines like, Pittsburgh's actually really nice now.
Oh,
It was
okay.
We went right when they were turning good.
Interesting. So there was some reputation it had in the past, and now it's turned the corner.
I think because it was shitty, and they, someone probably gave them money and made it good.
That's quite a drive, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like a nice 10-hour drive or so. But that's always Chicago, And
when are you planning that trip?
It's going to be sometime in May, and I think it just happens to fall on the weekend where the Braves are visiting up there.
Oh, nice.
And I'm staying by that park, so I was like, oh, I'll make a weekend out of it. Just kind of.
What do they call that? Is that PNC?
PNC Park. Yeah. I think there was some. They were on the news just the other day, but they got rid of some statue or something. Something happened there.
PNC Park's supposed to be one of those classic ones that you want to go see a game in.
That's why he's going to do that.
That should be nice.
Yeah.
All right. I suppose we should talk about the awful news of the week.
Oh, but I thought things were good.
Let's open up the WGAS NewsBag. It's time for Who Gives a Shit News. Abe, how's the 401k holding up, buddy? You been keeping an eye on it?
Unless you're retiring, at which point you should have moved your money to safer ground, there's no really good point of looking at the stock market or your portfolio during these kind of volatile moments. But no, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm sure it's all in the red for the year.
Yeah, stocks have taken quite a hit here lately since we last spoke. Largely as a result of so much uncertainty around the Trump tariff policy, which was introduced, what was Liberation Day? April 2nd, I believe.
Yeah, the day after April Fool's Day, yeah.
Yeah, he called it Liberation Day. It's not the first time he's called something Liberation Day. Recently, like January 20th, he also referred to as Liberation Day.
Really? Wow, I did not, that must have not stuck.
Yeah, and so now April 2nd is Liberation Day as people are liberated of their monies.
You would think most people would just remember it as Tariff Day. Like, I mean, you want to save Liberation Day for something that's, positive.
He's literally trying to make Liberation Day happen. It's fine.
Yeah.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Did you see what the Elon Musk person posted on Twitter?
Specifically about what? He posts a lot.
About this.
How he was against the tariffs?
He's come out.
He posted a video of an old guy describing pencils.
I imagine like a Milton Friedman video or something along those lines.
Yes, that's what it is.
Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office. It was a magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum. That is why the operation of the free market is so essential, not only to promote productive efficiency, but even more, to foster harmony and peace among the peoples of the world.
Whatever. I suppose that perhaps is a signal of a rift perhaps beginning to grow between Musk and Trump, but also, like, who fucking cares?
I like to find the drama where I can.
Yeah.
This is primarily like a Pete Navarro kind of thing. Like, I imagine at some point, because Trump has been pushing this for some time, but it seems like Navarro and his ilk have maybe sold Trump on the idea, because now he seems to be fixated.
Well, no, this is not something he needed to be sold on. This goes, like, you can find interviews of him on, like, Larry King or Oprah back in the 80s and 90s, where he talked about tariffs. Like, it's his whole thing is how for fucking 40 years he's been talking about how the United States has been getting the short end of the stick when it comes to global trade because of the global trade deficits that we're in, and the as he sees it, the balancing of the ledger is how you determine whether or not you're getting ripped off, and he's believed that you could make the argument that it is the single thing that he has been consistent on in his entire public life, is this protectionist trade policy that he believes that we're suckers and losers because we buy more things from other countries than we sell to them. Right.
Which was a left of center kind of view, right, for some time in the past.
Yeah. I mean, until the blob all came together in the 90s around following NAFTA and the success of various free trade agreements that, the fact that we benefited greatly from a crazy trade imbalance, say, with the nation of Japan, right? And it makes me fucking crazy. Like, I was watching a Wall Street Journal video last week. A known liberal rag, the Wall Street Journal, put out a video on YouTube talking about the tariffs and the impact that it's going to have on the auto industry here in this country. And
their videos are very good.
It was like a 10 or 11 minute long video, and like 4 minutes in, I had to turn it off, because it's the sort of thing, and I don't want to brag or anything, and I may have mentioned this on the show in the past. My two best grades in any level of anything, college or high school, was Econ 101. In high school, I think I got like 107 or something, was my final score, because I got everything right, and then also all of the extra credit, and then in college, like the easiest class I think I ended up with 103 in the Econ 101 class that I took in college. Like, for whatever reason, I'm not saying I'm particularly bright on the subject, but like after decades of listening to Marketplace on NPR and listening to Clark Howard, and then also for whatever reason I'm able to read an economics textbook or essay or what have you, and like it makes sense to me. It's a language that I am more or less fluent in, at least at the very basic levels, right? And so when I have to listen to a Wall Street Journal video talking about why tariffs are bad, actually, in terms of the impact that they have on prices for the consumer, it's like, yes, like, but we can teach that to 7-year-olds.
Yes, but I didn't learn anymore because you turned the video off 4 minutes into it.
Yeah. And getting back to the idea that this is the one thing that Donald Trump has been consistent on for his entire public life, like, we are now beholden to the bad idea of one stupid and incurious man. Like, the global economy is now in the balance because of a bad and consistently bad idea he's had about the world for his entire life. Like, this one idiot is now doing this because Congress has so thoroughly abdicated its power in this regard. And in fact, within the last few weeks, went out of its way to say, we're not going to fuck with the tariffs. The president can do what he wants to do with the tariffs. There was some pushback from that, thanks to, I think, Rand Paul and the Democrats and Mitch McConnell and probably Susan Collins. I'm not sure who. I think it was 3 Republicans, and the Democrats passed a bill out of the Senate trying to rein some of this back in. And it's not going to stand a chance in the House, obviously.
Right.
Because the Republicans won't even bother to bring it up for a vote. Although if it did come up for a vote, you would think that there are enough non-insane Republicans on the House side to pass it as well. But of course, Mike Johnson isn't going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, there's little interest to cross Trump this early. So I'm sure if there was like a secret vote, there would be enough to rein back some of the control from the executive to Congress, but nobody wants to put their name on it, at least on the right.
And we were watching this Wall Street Journal video, and we get to the point where they say, and I'll make sure there's a link to the video in the show note, but they're going through and saying, and this is before, because of course they announce these fucking things, and in classic fashion, it's like, so there's not going to be any exceptions whatsoever. And then it's like, well, actually, because of the USMCA, which we put in place in the previous administration, the first Trump administration, Canada and Mexico are going to be exempt on these certain things. So this is perhaps slightly a reaction more to the tariffs as they were conceived to go up against Canada and Mexico. But taking what the administration said was going to be the case before they started making exceptions, American cars, like your average American pickup truck, was going to cost $6,000 more just because of how many times the different parts cross the border, even for an American-made car, right? So they were saying this is for a car that's built in Detroit. The parts come from everywhere, right? The parts come from the Far East. They come from Mexico and Canada. They come from all over the goddamn world because we live in a thoroughly modern globalist economy.
Interconnected.
Right? That's just
yes.
Right. It's how it works. And so even though these were cars that were built above the threshold, assembled and built in America, they say made in America on them, because so many of those parts have to cross the border. Like just a transmission.
How much fentanyl's coming in with those parts, by the way?
Right. Just the transmission crosses the U.S.-Canada border like 4 times or something in its life. Like different components of the transmission go back and forth to different plants before finally ending up in Detroit, before they end up in the F-150 or whatever, right? So it's like $6,000. And that's for an American-made car that is theoretically exempt from these sorts of things based on the rhetoric around them. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how much more a product like that will cost. Because if all of the European and Asian cars now cost more money in the United States because of tariffs, the ones that are imported are getting a fucking 23% or a 30% or a 10% tariff. The price on those cars goes up. Therefore, the price on American cars, because of the rules of economics, the American cars, the price has to go up as well, because it's a question of supply and demand, right? If it's now harder for Americans to buy imported foreign cars, then the supply of American cars is constricted, right? Because more Americans will be buying American cars, which is therefore going to raise the price of those American cars above the $6,000 that we've now just piled in on the tariffs question, right? And it's like to have the Wall Street Journal do a YouTube video explaining it after the fact as these things are going into effect. It's like why? Why are we in this situation now where this one fucking idiot with one bad idea is permitted to have this sort of destabilizing effect on everything?
It's one of the
it's infuriating. It drives me. It drives me actually batty.
One of the arguments, the central argument, is that there's going to be on the back end. There may be some short-term pain. But eventually, all of these different
tell me the sunny outlook for the eventually. What's the time?
I think he was about to.
What's the timeline?
Right. So what's troubling, and I was listening to some of the cabinet heads over the weekend give conflicting statements. Like one person, like the Commerce Secretary, would say.
Tell me, sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Tell me that before, when we had Steve Mnuchin, and it's like, man, I fucking hate this Steve Mnuchin guy. I'm so sick of Steve Mnuchin's dissembling and lying for Trump and covering for Trump, and like all of the apologetics that Steve Mnuchin did for Donald Trump when I know he's smarter and knows better. And now in Trump 2.0, we get Scott fucking Bessent with his fake, his like marionette teeth that he's got in his mouth.
Bessent,
this weird looking motherfucker.
And Lutnick, right? Yeah.
And Lutnick, and they're so much worse than Steve Mnuchin was. It's like I'm pining for the good old days of Steve Mnuchin.
Right, but that's true. I do wonder though, like if this muddled explanation, because they're saying like, eventually, they don't say when, down the road at some point there'll be jobs to be had because a lot of companies will come to the United States. Again, no time frame given, but the conflicting...
We're talking about a remaking of the global economy, the way that everything is made and how everything is sourced and how, like... We're talking about a generation-long project. What we're talking about is a 20-year commitment to this sort of a thing. Right. Is what we have to imagine that after Trump is gone and J.D. Vance continues the protectionist thing, right? Eventually, we're going to swing into some Democrat who's in charge. Right. That person is going to have to be committed to this same project. Right. The Republican after that is going to have to be committed to this same project. Right. We have to go back to the beginning of the George W. Bush administration to imagine how long this sort of a thing has to go on uninterrupted in order to get to the alleged blissful future that we're all waiting for.
Right. And also, we're entering this era of automation, right? So basically, for the gains to be realized, it's going to take years. This
American robots.
Norm-busting president will need to rely on future presidents who will normalize his actions today. Like
what did Lutnick say? He said something like, there'll be Americans who are doing the tiny screwdrivers onto the iPhones before realizing that was a very stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
And saying, no, they'll be fixing the robots.
Yeah, they'll be fixing the robots, and there'll be so many of those jobs, right? But like, this is like the worst of both.
Why wouldn't there just be other robots to fix the fucking robots?
There probably will be. I mean,
that's the thing. Why do we need people?
I mean,
once there are robots that can assemble a fucking iPhone, there will be robots that can work on the robots that assemble the iPhone.
I mean, there was a 60 Minutes preview for next week, and there were some robots doing robot things. I was like, boy, they're ahead of schedule. Look at them. But the biggest problem is that all that's going to happen is short-term chaos, confusion, which is going to raise the cost of things, and then it's going to be like no payoff because no one's going to want to see this through, right? And so like once
it's not even that. This is the first argument is 20 years from now, we will have remade the global economy and everything will be great. And we'll be living in a time where 90% of the goods that Americans buy have a Made in America stamp on them. And like we won't drink coffee anymore. Maybe we'll all just be drinking Mountain Dew.
We'll drink Celsius.
That's a good Tennessee product, right? Or somewhere down there in Appalachia where Mountain Dew was born. Because coffee, of course, we can't grow that anywhere in the fucking United States. All of that is imported. So we can't have that.
Tennessee.
We can thoroughly reject the idea that in 20 years we will have remade primarily because the world will not get bigger in that way, right? The world is increasingly small, right? And the communications infrastructure is only going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be easier to get from one place to the next, not harder. And the idea that somehow we're not going to engage in trade on a global scale is fucking insane. Yeah. Like it's just not the way that the world has ever worked at any point through all of history, right? Eventually, as we got better at getting ships from one part of the world to the next, trade expanded. And to say nothing of the fact that it is arguably the single greatest asset in terms of a peaceful globe is the ability of countries to trade freely with one another or have those sorts of relatively open relationships, right? If China is selling us 100 billion doodads every fucking year, they're less likely to want to get into a shooting war with us, right? They have no reason to provoke us on that front. This is a lesson that we're meant to have learned after World War II, right? We let Germany and Japan rebuild their economies so that they could then become largely exporting nations, right? They have done well in terms of their automobile industries and in terms of their engineering capabilities. Both of those countries have. And rebuilt their countries from the ashes out of World War II to relative success. Like we know this, that countries get along better in terms of their militaries when they get along better in terms of their economies. And it's the nature of life on this planet. And we're not going to roll the clock back in any meaningful way 5 years or 20 years from now. So like I think we can thoroughly reject that rationalization, which is all it is. It's just it's one of like half a dozen different rationalizations that they've been throwing against the wall since these tariffs went into place last week.
And nothing seems to stick. So you said earlier that this is a long-held view by Trump, but there's another possibility that Trump is setting conditions up to where everybody has to go through him for him to allow for some carve-outs for companies and countries, right? So like maybe there's some sort of financial incentive to do it in that way. Do you think that's playing a role?
I don't think it's a financial incentive so much as it is a politically powerful one for him, which is he has set. This is the same thing where it's like mystifying when he talks about like talking tough with Canada and Mexico and Denmark, right? Like why are we so mad at the people who have had our backs and who have been our friends for as long as anyone can remember, right? There aren't countries besides there's England and Canada and Mexico and Denmark and a handful and Australia. Like these are our best friends on the global stage.
But not to Trump. Trump is very transactional.
No, that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Our understanding of our relationships with those countries over the course of the last 70 years has been one of mutual benefit, right? And respect and friendship, basically, and alliance, right?
Yeah.
Crucially, alliance. And Trump does not believe in alliance in that way because he believes that any relationship is purely zero sum, and that one of you is getting ripped off, and that you don't want to be the sucker who's the one who's getting ripped off. And so he goes to war, metaphorically, with Canada and Mexico and Denmark, and less so with Great Britain and Australia, but who knows? But like fucking Israel had a not the lowest possible tariff placed on them, right? I think that it was like in the 20% range that tariffs were placed on Israel, who's supposed to be one of America's best friends in the world. And so the idea here being that he does not believe that any relationship is mutually beneficial, that we must be getting ripped off. And so he's now set the terms for literally every country on Earth, including the uninhabited ones, where if they want to have a conversation, right, come to the table. Yeah. And now he can have that parade of people coming to him and bending the knee. And he can talk about all of the different deals that he's made. Right. And it doesn't matter to him the chaos that ensues as a result of these policies, because now he has set an enemies list effectively for him to go down slowly for the next couple of years, checking off as the Netanyahu is here today, and the French will be here a week from now, and whoever else will be here a month after that.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that Trump is so willing, or he doesn't seem to mind any sort of political cost that will come from this, because any sort of downturn in the economy, I mean, the job report for March was promising. At some point, though, things will give. So, like, let's say this summer, the numbers go in the wrong direction as far as unemployment, not the stock market going up and down, but actual unemployment, the fears of recession growing ever larger. Like, he's kind of taken ownership of that. So if anything goes sideways, it will be his doing. That will be the narrative. And he seems to, like, not mind it. Maybe because he's term limited and he's like, who cares? Like, well,
yeah. First of all, he's not beholden to any political pressures moving forward, right? Like, he cannot be elected.
Even
again.
if it were like, if this were like a year from now, and like all the polling showed that the Republican Congress was facing a very bad map. Like, I don't even think even that would get him to change, right? So he seems to be in a position to where it doesn't matter what political costs will be inflicted on the other people.
So we've determined that the rationalization about it being a long-term solution to fixing the global economy is bogus. Right. We've determined that it's more likely that this is just about lining up an enemies list who can come and bend the knee, and that he can claim various victories over in the months and years to come. What about the idea that you're expecting a recession at some point, so why not go ahead and induce it here in year one, so that 2 or 3 quarters from now, when the economy turns back around, as you have no doubt rolled back, despite the fact that he says on Truth Social, my policies never change, right, and that you can rely on and what does that even mean in the context of from day 1 to day 2, not knowing what the tariffs are going to be on one of 180 different countries in the world? Like, they literally change as capriciously as the fucking weather, right, based on who was most recently in the Oval Office. So, yes, of course they change. So you do this, you have this downturn in the stock market, which perhaps I think there was a thing out of the Atlanta Fed last month saying we expect a slowing of growth and perhaps even a recession coming in the next couple of quarters. You endure that and you get it out of the way now, so that by the time a year from now the midterms are coming up, you can say, look, we're like I promised, things are turning around now. Is it that level of scheming?
I don't think he's thinking that far ahead, but are you saying in that scenario he will roll back the tariffs and things will improve, or he'll keep the tariffs on and things will improve on their own?
The tariffs are it's carrot and stick. The tariffs will be in place until they're not in place anymore, until he makes a deal with Japan, and then he makes a deal with Vietnam, right? And then he makes a deal with Bangladesh, and he makes a deal with so-and-so for the coffee. Like it will just be, it's just a way to set up an unending series of Fox News hits about the latest deal that he struck with such and such a country. And so, yeah, as time goes on and trade deals are struck and he can claim victories, these tariffs start to come back off, and presumably prices reflect that, and things aren't so bad in the American economy. But like, we're enduring a profoundly negative moment in order to get there, which is it's just churn. There is always natural churn in an economy as big as ours. This is like induced churn in some way.
Should we buy more coffee?
I mean, it's probably too late. The coffee had already gone up like last month.
You say it's already too late, but it's not going to get cheaper.
No, not anytime soon.
Okay, so buy more coffee because it's very important.
Yeah.
I mean, how much can coffee go up?
I don't know.
As much as it wants. That's the other thing, is these companies, like with the fucking eggs, they're just going to charge more even if they don't don't need to.
The giant bags I was getting from Costco were like $10 or $11 just a couple of months ago, and it was $16 when I was there last week.
Right. This, by the way, I mean, this erratic raising of tariffs everywhere is giving cover to companies to raise the cost, because they can always point to that, and it's and they can get away with it because, like, I mean, you know, maybe...
How am I supposed to... I can't call them out on it.
So it's like, hey, we'd love to... You know, there's car dealerships... over the last couple of weeks, I've received some things in the mail. Not that I'm looking for a car, but things in the mail saying, hey, get in while the price is good, you know, before the tariffs hit. Like, trying to drum up business before there's an impact to the cost, you know. But it seems like now... the permission structure is there for any company to just raise the cost and say, we've been impacted by the Trump's tariffs or whatever.
Why wouldn't they?
Almost certainly have, is the thing. It's not even a question of cover. It's what it is. The tariffs are a tax on the consumer. Period. End of story. It doesn't matter what they say about how that's not the case. Tariffs are just a tax, and it's a massive tax increase. And when Scott Bessent or Howard Lutnick goes on television and says this is actually a tax break for the American people, they're just doing George Orwell shit, right? They're literally just redefining the world to be the opposite of what we all know to be true, and then telling us that we're crazy.
Do you think that I guess, you know, time will tell how this all shakes out, but as it relates to China specifically, the president made a post a day ago saying that because China promised and followed through on their threat to say, like, whatever you do, we're going to also do. So, like, they've also reciprocated the tariffs, and then Trump is now threatening to raise the tariff on China by 50% if they don't relent in a day or two. So do you think this back and
which would put Chinese tariffs at like somewhere between 2/3 and 100%, right? Like, so that your $5 doodad costs $10 now,
right? And so, I mean, China, by the looks of it, they have the stomach for this sort of thing, you know, because it's not like a democracy over there, right? So, like, there'll be a cost to them, but they can absorb it. And I do wonder if this is a sound plan for Trump to, all right, 50%, 100%, it becomes this comical, like, tit for tat. At some point, this would have to end because, like, I don't think China is going to say, okay, we're going to relent because you said so, because they have said they would do otherwise.
Right. And also they... As a result of the fact that we buy more from them than we could ever hope to import into their country and sell to their people, they have the power here, right? Like, American companies, retailers in particular, are not going, like Walmart is going to be freaking out about this 100% tariff thing, right? Target similarly, Amazon, all of them. Anybody who does any online shopping or has for the last few years, where you buy something cheap on Amazon and then you go to check out and it's like, why is this going to take 3 months to get here when it only costs like $1.25? And it's because some idiot puts it in an envelope in China and it comes all the way here for $1.25, and it comes entirely tariff free because it costs less than $800, right? An argument can be made that this, like, and you can almost imagine the closing of that particular loophole, which is a thing where you can just buy stuff tariff-free from China if it costs less than $800 and it will ship to you. If done by a Democrat, it would be framed as like a green policy, like an environmentally friendly policy where it's like, look, I'm going to make up some numbers here. We do $200 billion of trade with China at sub this $800 mark that comes into our country, and it mostly comes in on shipping containers that should not be filled with this plastic garbage otherwise. And so as an environmental regulation, we're going to close this loophole in an attempt to send less garbage from one side of the planet to the other. And you can imagine Republicans freaking out about it because it impacts the working man more than anybody else. Here, people who make less than $90,000 a year, less than $70,000 a year, that is the type of American who's going to be most impacted by the closing of that loophole, right? Again, like you said, he's not exactly beholden to political pressures in the way that he would have been in a first term. And so where does the pushback come from? And I don't think that's entirely clear.
I mean, the obvious situation would be if in the midterms there's like a grand national argument that the Democrats make to say, like, we'll rein it in because this actually is something Congress controls. The Republican Congress has deferred it to Trump, but we'll rein it in. And that could be something that he would have to kind of deal with, because that would be the argument that may find some purchase with people.
Yeah. Speaking of the tariffs situation, Nintendo, which released or announced rather last week the Switch 2 officially to the world in a Nintendo Direct that the kids and I and Lori watched live as it was happening because we are excitedly awaiting the successor.
And because the kids were on spring break, we wouldn't have let them stay home for that.
How long has it been since the first one came out?
2017 was when Nintendo Switch made its debut. This is one of the longer life cycles in any Nintendo console, and one would imagine that that's closer to how things will be moving forward. Like these consoles are going to have longer life cycles because
still relevant.
It can only get so good in terms of the graphics and stuff. Like until there's some big jump and somebody releases and you've sort of seen it where the big jump isn't helping, whether it's the Apple Vision Pro or the Oculus. The
and even
Meta
this
Quest
isn't
thing.
a new thing. It's just an updated thing, even though they're like, this isn't just an updated Switch. Like, yes, it is. That's why you're calling it a Switch 2.
Right. It's very
and not
much
a whole new thing.
It's very much a direct sequel to what the Switch is. It's just got a bigger, better screen and better computer processors in there.
Just better. Good. Make it. But don't act like it's not just an updated version.
It's also the most expensive Nintendo console that they've ever released. It will retail was originally going to retail for $450, or you could get the version that's coming with Mario Kart World for $500, which was
World?
Our plan. Yeah, they're calling it Mario Kart World.
Oh, Mario Kart World. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can travel. You can go off-roading. You can.
Yes,
there's a whole world.
All very exciting. But Nintendo has delayed the pre-order date for U.S. buyers indefinitely to take stock of the new tariffs, as from the Washington Post. They had announced this last week, and then the tariffs all go into place, and the pre-orders were supposed to start on, I think, April the 9th. But they have kicked that back because it's possible that they're going to have to raise the price further than the already most expensive ever Nintendo console. Because of these tariffs.
So they're not planning on eating the tariff cost. As I think
the plan is not. And in news coverage that I saw, of the announcement was people expressing surprise and dismay at how expensive the console was going to be already, and suggesting that perhaps it's priced that high because of Trump's planned tariffs, and apparently not. Like that this was like the inflationary reality of the last 4 years is what has driven them to price it at $450, and the Trump tariffs becoming a more distinct reality is forcing Nintendo to say perhaps rethink things on the price. That's it's a direct. You can see a direct impact in the immediate aftermath of the tariffs to the consumer, and especially
the nerd consumer.
Yeah, I think especially in this specific situation, because they already rolled out with the initial price, and now you're going to see whatever the new price is going to be, and it's going to be a very clear example. Similar thing will happen with whenever the iPhone comes out in September, because typically the price points have been about this, $799 for this model, $999 for that model. It's been kind of pretty stable as far as the cost. So if it's going to be $50 more, $100 more to account for the tariff, people are going to notice and comment on. It seems like a lot of these, the tech world is going to be the first to feel the brunt. Well, I mean, there's also the food, but
yeah, you just go to the grocery store in 2 weeks and you're going to be able to feel the brunt of it, right? It's again, it's the sort of thing that why it's such. I think that my response to it is like living under a king. It's this notion that just this one asshole can make this choice, and it can be so profoundly negatively impactful for the rest of us. And there's no one willing to hold him to account. And it's oh, that's what it's like to live under a fucking monarch, right? This guy has a bad idea, and now all of us have to fucking deal with it.
Do you think
it sucks?
Do you foresee any silver lining? If this thing goes sideways and all falls apart, right? Do you see a scenario
That's
where
the silver lining.
The imperial presidency will be reined in a future, basically saying this is one thing that moderate Republicans and most of Democrats can to say let's just pull this back to where a lot of these things are the domain of Congress.
I don't know what breaks the populist fever, right? At some point you have to say, because what is MAGA? Right. 30 or 40% of the Republican Party, or what hardcore MAGA? Right. I don't know what the number is. I assume that if we assume that Trump's floor is a 38% approval rating, which I think is roughly the bottom that he ever got to along these lines, maybe a little bit lower than that after immediately after January 6th and after the transition in 2021. So 35 or 37% of Americans are going to support Donald Trump essentially no matter what. What does that mean in terms of, because that's just it's a cult thing, but it's not just a cult of Trump. It's a populist moment in American politics that's part of a larger global populist moment, and I don't know what breaks that besides calamity, right?
But that is what breaks it. Make all these people not be able to afford to get groceries. Sorry that I'll also be able to, but that's the only thing that'll work. At
the same time that you're creating enemies of former allies, right? At the same time that you're creating an adversarial relationship with every other head of state or country on the planet, where now they have somebody to yell about, and I know it sounds like it. Even as I'm saying it, I feel myself sounding hysterical, right? But what leads to global strife and conflict is exactly this sort of nonsense, where we have economic problems at home that we can then blame on the bad guys externally, right? And get mad about these other countries who are now ripping us off in ways that they couldn't have dreamed of before, when it was just a trade imbalance thing. Which, by the way, and I don't know how explicitly it needs to be said, but it's just such a stupid fucking way of imagining whether or not you're getting ripped off, right? I forget where it was that I heard it explained this way, but it's trade policy based on the idea that if you have something that I want and I give you $50 for it, and then I get the thing and you have my $50 and I am using the thing and am pleased with my purchase, objectively speaking, you ripped me off because you now have my $50, right? It's this idea that somehow, because fucking Colombia makes a bunch of coffee beans and we buy all of the coffee beans from them, that Colombia is ripping us off because they happen to live in part of the world where it is hospitable for the growing of the coffee bean, right? And how is that at all any way of approaching anything? And it completely ignores the fact that the primary export that we have in this country after energy is services, right? And so if you include services in the trade deficit, all of a sudden things aren't nearly as as serious, like financial services, like any.
It's not like media. We're not movies and stuff.
I don't know how they calculate Hollywood receipts. I don't know what you mean by that.
Oh, I just figured that was the biggest one.
The U.S. primary export after energy, I believe, is services, right? Like we are a service-based economy, not only for ourselves, but in how we relate to much of the rest of the world. And so if you include that in the trade question, all of a sudden the balance we still exist in a deficit. Right. And it makes sense for us to exist in a deficit with most other countries on the planet because we are the richest country on the planet. And so we have all of this money. And what do you do with all of your money besides find cool shit or stupid shit to spend it or waste it on? It doesn't mean that you're getting ripped off. It means that you're getting something for the money that you're exchanging for those goods or services, and then are partaking of them. You bought the bottle of wine. You drank the bottle of wine. You didn't get ripped off. You had an enjoyable experience, got drunk, and maybe had a good time with the old lady because you drank the bottle of wine. You're not the sucker and the loser, right? It's just a mutually beneficial exchange of goods for money. Why does that have to be said over and over again?
The analogy you just used is hilarious because in Italy, instead of saying you can't have your cake and eat it too, their version of that is you can't have a bottle of wine and a drunk wife.
That's a good saying. I like the Italians.
It's clumsier than the cake one, but that's pretty funny.
It sounds good when they say it, but it's not. The translation is you can't have a bottle of wine and a drunk wife.
And a drunk and turned up wife.
The argument of we're being taken advantage of seems to win people over, and I think it doesn't help the term deficit. It's kind of like probationary employees. People think you're on probation, you did something wrong. I think sometimes the language kind of does a disservice to what the issue is. And then thinking, deficit, bad. We are in a deficit with this other country. That's not good. I think people are kind of...
How can you possibly have built the greatest consumer economy in the history of civilization, right? This entire thing is built on the idea that we just keep buying shit, that we are, as a people, constitutionally incapable of not buying shit, right? That's the whole idea of keeping this fucking train on the tracks.
That was our marching order after 9/11. Hey. Right.
We have to do this because it's what literally lifts the entire globe out of poverty in important ways, right? It's what we've been told over and over again for as long as I can remember. We are a consumerist economy, and that is our identity, and it is our strength. And then this fucking dumbass is yeah, but who are you buying that from? And if you're buying it from somebody who's not Donald Trump, then you must be getting ripped off. Because that's I don't know. It's such a profoundly stupid, and it's just who he is, right? It goes back to who he is as a real estate developer, as someone who believes that as a rent seeker in a profoundly definitional way, what he's doing is saying, I have this thing and you can give me money to partake in it, and I will continue taking your money for fucking forever, right? That's what a landlord does. It's such a landlordy, protectionist way of imagining the exchange of goods and services. And this notion that somehow, what does he think of his tenants at all of his various properties?
That they are not people.
They are just suckers, right? That is the only explanation. That they are just losers and suckers who keep giving him money like fucking idiots. I just don't get why we have to have these fucking dumb conversations. There should be no... and then to listen to Peter Navarro or Lutnick or Scott Bessent insist, actually, this is going to be fine. And Bessent on Face or where was he? Meet the Press maybe was saying, look, only half of Americans really have any money in the stock market anyway. So who are we really you're just going to write off half of Americans? Right. And by the way, do you think that that's not, in terms of political ideology, not fairly well... there aren't a fair number of Republicans who might own stocks, you fucking dumbass, and we're just not going to worry about them. My feeling is that the thing that we said earlier about how this is just his way of creating an enemies list who can all show up and bend the knee, and then he can dole out exceptions and dole out. So Japan, you're going to get your tariff percentage knocked down, and like, what bullshit are they going to bring to the table to say, okay, here's the win for Donald Trump?
Right. But then that argument that we've already established was bullshit about bringing back jobs is going to fall apart after every successive agreement that he signs, right? It's like, well, never mind all that. We now are fine with the trade deficit with this one country and then this other one country, and this, it just seems kind of like, what's the argument?
He used to get so worked up in the 80s about how Japan sells all of these VCRs and Walkmans and cars in our country, and we don't, like, we're just getting ripped off and ripped off and ripped off. What fucking asshole is walking around listening to a Walkman in 1988 and thinking about how the Sony Corporation and the Empire of Japan ripped him off? Right? Nobody thinks that. Like, so why does it play to the broader audience when, if you think about it for even half a second as an individual in terms of the way you relate to the products and services that you buy, it falls apart immediately. It's inconceivable that you would go down to the diner and get furious at them after they gave you breakfast for $5.99, right? But that's the mindset. Is I paid for this meal.
That's what boomers do, though. So.
I paid for this meal and I am the fucking victim. It's such fucking pussy victim shit. It makes me so mad. And we have to put up with it from this baby. He's just this big, stupid baby. And I felt like I did a relatively good job in the first Trump administration not doing what I just did, which is to yell about how Donald Trump is just a big, stupid baby. But it's just getting dumber. And like, I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the patience to listen to people defend it when I know that any modicum of thought that goes into it, that they know that the thing that they're saying is fucking bullshit.
Right. I mean, he has exhausted the benefit of doubt, right? Like, if you were trying to, like, well, maybe this is like a long-term it's like, no, it's not.
All right. What else, Trump-wise, in the news? We can briefly.
Well, you don't have to stay on that.
Briefly on the deportations thing. There was a U.S. attorney who was suspended from their job because he admitted in court something like, "Yeah, we fucked up." And we sent the wrong guy, or we sent a guy to Venezuela we sent a guy to El Salvador, this fucking giant mega prison, who probably shouldn't have gone there. We made a mistake. And Pam Bondi was like, the Attorney General said, "Oh, well, you're suspended because if you don't go to court and zealously defend the policies and positions of the U.S. government, then you're not going to be working for us any longer." So this guy acknowledges that the Trump administration fucked up in this way and then immediately loses his job.
Because it hurts the political argument that the administration is making, right? Because they don't want to make that concession, right? They want to say we have the authority to do this, and like they don't want to have to argue like, oh, even people who don't deserve to be sent there, according to our judgment, we're just going to leave in those prisons. We're not going to try to retrieve them. We're not duty bound to retrieve them. So I don't know. Do they expect the next person who's going to be in line to toe the company line? Like, I mean, in court, I mean, don't they have some ethical standards when you're an attorney? Like, you can't just lie in court, can you?
It's from the New York Times coverage of the question. A senior Justice Department immigration lawyer was put on indefinite leave Saturday after questioning the Trump administration's decision to deport a Maryland man to El Salvador. One day after representing the government in court, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche suspended Erez Ravini, the acting deputy director of the department's Immigration Litigation Division, for failing to, quote, follow a directive from your superiors, end quote, according to a letter sent to Mr. Ravini and obtained by the New York Times. Quote, at my direction, every Department of Justice attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the United States, Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote in a statement sent to the Times on Saturday. Quote, any attorney who fails to abide by this direction will face consequences, end quote. This is a guy, as all of these people do, a sterling record of doing good work for the Justice Department for 15 or 20 years or something like that.
Which means nothing.
Right. because the moment that you contradict what Pam Bondi wants you to say in court, you're in trouble.
Right, and also, I mean, the catch-22 in that situation, were he or she, whichever lawyer does something like this, if they were to say something zealously defending the U.S. government by way of this administration, and they run afoul of something, then the administration will distance themselves.
The ethical minefield is on the attorney who's talking in court, not on the government.
Because then they'll say, well, that was what that lawyer said. Like, oh, I don't know what he's doing or what she's doing, right? So basically, you have to kind of like expose yourself to some risk, or else you'll be fired, which will expose you to. So basically, it's like they almost want people just to kind of quit and just have, like, I don't know, like diehard true believers working for them. Like, I don't know. And even they, why would they want to risk it? Like, it seems you're ruining your career just to, I don't know.
So I know that I have ranted extensively about this question the last couple of episodes. Is it just romantic and naive of me to believe that at some point the slow drip, drip, drip of, well, this guy wasn't a gangbanger and this guy was a gay hairdresser who's probably not a gangbanger, and this guy was a soccer player, and probably his like the algo for determining whether or not these people were gangbangers was obviously severely compromised to allow a handful of them through who shouldn't have been deported, and to say nothing of the fact that, like, even the other 290 some odd, or whatever the number is, likely should have faced some sort of due process, right? Like there is a process for determining this sort of thing, and that we don't just we're not a country in theory that just disappears people without any due process before the law. Is it thoroughly naive of me to believe that eventually that sort of thing will break through, or does the rabble truly not care?
Well, the complicating.
Why would the rabble care?
The complicating part in all of this is the Supreme Court, right? So you have like these lower courts, these judges trying to do something to put a stop to some of these things, and then as recently as just as we're speaking now, like the Supreme Court overturned like a stay, basically saying that the Trump administration can continue with their Alien Enemies Act invocation to keep people in prison in another country, right?
Well, stop fucking venue shopping this shit.
The argument,
right? I'm sorry, but like that, it's not on the Supreme Court because essentially, this, from my brief understanding of the decision today, is this was happening in fucking Texas, and you dumbasses took it to court in Washington D.C. because you wanted a friendly venue for it, like. And then you got your result, right? You got your emergency stay. But like just as easily, the Supreme Court says, well, but you're in the wrong goddamn venue. And go to Texas and get the negative outcome, and then we can slowly work through the process as it's meant to be worked up. And like, is that a grander, much larger problem with having ideological courts that are like in New Orleans or in Texas versus the more liberal ideological court in Washington, D.C.? Yes, of course it is. And venue shopping is a huge problem in that regard. But at the same time, like I'm not going to be too worked up about the Supreme Court saying we got to follow the process here.
Right. It remains to be seen, though, what they ultimately think of this once it goes through the right avenue, right? Because it's going to go before the Supreme Court. And it's, again, I can't get a good sense of, they said in their statement, like, this is just specifically like a procedural issue, that it went through the wrong system. Like, it has to go through Texas because that's where they were arrested. But, like, once they do that and it goes through the system and the Supreme Court hears it, I'm not clear as to which side of, like, if it's going to be a 5-4 against, where Roberts is on the minority side. I don't know how this is going to shake out, but it seems like the Supreme Court is very...
I have so much trouble imagining that Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts and likely even Amy Coney Barrett are going to be willing to say that constitutional protections, that our basic Bill of Rights extend only to citizens rather than persons. Right. Like, I don't see that happening. We're talking about a person. I believe that this case that we were just referencing, the one where they said we fucked up, Justice Department attorney acknowledged that a mistake was made here. This was a person here legally who is married to a U.S. citizen, I maybe again just naivete, but like I just cannot imagine that there aren't at least 7 justices on the Supreme Court who say that even if we want to defer to the executive a great deal when it comes to immigration and border enforcement and that sort of stuff, that human people in the United States, regardless of citizenship status, have certain inalienable rights, and they're entitled to due process before the law. Like sure, color me naive, I guess. I hope that's the case.
I hope so too, but we'll see. I don't have the same faith in the Supreme Court as you do.
Yeah. Speaking of other updates, although before we do that, I want to mention that speaking of Trump being a big, stupid baby, and it does sort of tie into the Mike Waltz update that we'll do here momentarily, Trump had a visit from Laura Loomer, who's I don't know what to call her, a sort of right-wing internet provocateur, I suppose. Nobody. I think she lost a congressional race at some point, like one that she never really had a chance to be in. Like I don't remember exactly what her history is.
Yeah, it seems like she's not.
Does that sound familiar to you?
It's weird. She's politically not viable, but she still wields some political power or influence to where she can go to the White House. And
she's got a ton of fucking Twitter followers.
Littlefinger.
Oh yeah, maybe she's like Littlefinger. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, is that what it is? Just her Twitter follower account is what's giving her this much pull?
Whatever. She's got Trump's ear, right? She was on the plane during the campaign, and she's a fucking complete lunatic. And if you're listening to people like Laura Loomer, there might literally be no hope for you. And the bad news is that Donald Trump, the president, the actual president of the United States, is meeting with and listening to Laura Loomer, who was in the White House last week. And shortly after her visit there, 6 national security staffers were fired because she went in there waving sheets of paper saying, these are the neocons that you've got working for you here. And if you want to fulfill your MAGA agenda and your America First agenda, these are the people who need to go. So that's not great.
And there's no vetting into her claims. It seems like they just got rid of people. There was, I forget who the congressman was from one of the states. He was on Face the Nation, and he was kind of like surprised that they got rid of somebody who he thought highly of. But it seems like these were like credentialed, very knowledgeable people that they got rid of because somebody said so. Like
this administration is like 2 months old. Like they just got these fucking jobs, and Laura Loomer can walk in with some printouts and convince Trump to get rid of them. Like what is even happening?
Right. And
I don't know that they were worth a shit or not. It doesn't matter to me. My guess is that they were all fucking dirtbags. That's my guess. But like, I don't want Laura Loomer walking into the Oval Office and saying you've got to get rid of these fucking people.
And I don't know. I mean, my earlier read of things was that it wouldn't be enough to get rid of some underlings. That they would need to get Waltz out by around Easter, let's say. And I don't know if this firing is going to now save his job or not, or if this is going to be enough. But like,
well, this was seemingly not even related to the Signal group chat stuff. Like it was something else entirely. Although there is developments on the Signal group chat stuff, which is the Guardian had an exclusive explaining how the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg got added to the White House Signal group chat. Did you see this?
I saw the headline for it.
Did he slip in there? Did he? What did he say?
Got sucked in.
Got sucked in. He got sucked in.
This is from The Guardian. I'll make sure there's a link in the show note. Donald Trump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, included a journalist in the Signal group chat about plans for U.S. strikes in Yemen after he mistakenly saved his number months before under the contact of someone else he intended to add, according to 3 people briefed on the matter. I won't read directly from the article anymore, but to sum it up, imagine that you got an email from somebody who had copy and pasted out of someone else's email, right? So imagine that I email Abe, and at the bottom in my email signature, it says Bob Howard, and it gives my email address and my phone number. And then Abe clicks the entire message and copy and pastes it to a new email. He sends it to all of his buddies at the Biffler. And so now all of his buddies at the Biffler have an email from Abe that includes my phone number at the bottom of it. And then because we live in a thoroughly bogus future where we rely on the robots and the algos to make all of our decisions for us, Siri, at some point down the line, it gets up in her fucking shit, and she's like, hey, you've got some contacts that need cleaning up. Let's go through these contacts. And so Binyam, co-host of The Biffler, gets an alert from Siri that says, hey, Abe's got this new number. It's 706-340 which is Bob's number, actually. But because Abe included it in an email from himself so that at the bottom of the email it showed that number, now Binyam is getting told by Siri, hey, we think this is an Abe number, right, so let's include this in Abe's contact information, right? And so apparently
it was the robot.
And then Binyam just says yes, right? He says yes. Let's clean up these contacts, Siri. You go ahead and do that work without even really like thinking about it, right? It's like, oh, how convenient. The robot wants me to add this number to Abe's profile. This works out for me, or contact sheet. So that's what happened, apparently, is that Mike Waltz received an email from the guy who was supposed to be included on the group chat back in October.
But, okay, so that part I get. But on the Signal app, like, does it show up? Is the name different? Because, like...
Right, so no. This is the rationalization, and I'm not saying this is 100%, because Goldberg has said he has a pre-existing relationship, has spoken to Mike Waltz at some point in the past, right? So I still think that the most likely answer here is the fat finger. Although this is
awfully hard. Your fingers have to be real fat.
This is a plausible... Well, not even fat finger, but haven't you ever been...
Just not paying attention?
When you're scrolling... Like, I have before, when scrolling through...
I mean, you did text a screenshot to the person.
Right. When scrolling through, you accidentally... Like, for example, Gmail on my phone has, like... You can just scroll and scroll for fucking forever, right? There's, like... Now there's 100 messages here. And, like, I'm going to archive all of these. And even as you're just scrolling through, you might accidentally highlight one because your finger lingered on that
what I'm saying.
Screen very slightly too long.
On this particular app, that is hard to do. You have to be very deliberate on this app.
Okay, so then this is perhaps an even more plausible scenario. Which,
I mean,
here's the following.
Have to, he could have just not been paying attention.
Right, but I think that to finish the scenario here, he gets an email from this guy. Guy's name is Brian Hughes. Brian Hughes has just copy and pasted an email from Jeffrey Goldberg that includes Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number at the bottom of it to Mike Waltz, right? So then some number of weeks later, even though Mike Waltz never called Jeffrey Goldberg, Siri thought that this phone number, which is actually Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number, should be in the Brian Hughes guy's contact list. So that when Mike Waltz goes to add Brian Hughes to the Signal message group, it says Brian Hughes, and it includes Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number instead of Brian Hughes's phone number.
So in that situation, with the screenshot, if Mike Waltz showed us his screenshot, it would not show Jeffrey Goldberg, it would show Brian Hughes in this example.
Presumably, if we could see screenshots from Waltz's Signal group chat, it would show as Brian Hughes there in the list. Yes,
but and then to everyone else, what does it show up as? Because
just the number.
Just the number. If you don't, like on a text.
If you don't have him in your contact list, then it's just the number.
Unless one of those other people has a relationship with Jeffrey Goldberg and it shows up as Jeffrey Goldberg, but no one notices.
Yeah, like Bob has these baseball chats. Like he has two teams. There's the majors and the minors. And most of the numbers just show up as numbers to me because I don't have their information. But when I do, it shows up as the person. But it's not Signal. It's the same thing.
And this would not be something that Waltz is inclined to confirm, right? That's reporting because like it doesn't make him look any better, right? So it's not like
if I was him, I would have already, and maybe he has, at least shown Trump. Like, look, in my phone, it's Brian Hughes.
He can change that after, though.
Well, sure, but like And I don't know how long
I can go change some contact names right now.
I don't know how long the messages were being saved on. Like if this all broke.
Yeah, you can put it. You can set them to disappear after a certain amount of time.
They were set to disappear. I think after a day or two or a week or something like that. I don't remember.
I thought it was like 4 weeks, but maybe it was earlier, shorter than that.
So yeah, presumably he could have shown proof of precisely
this. But again,
this.
it would not improve his situation, right? Like, how is that any better than the fat fingers theory?
It's not.
Right? And also there was like some other reporting, I don't think it was The Guardian, where they said that Waltz was using personal Gmail accounts to share information. So it seemed like it's pretty careless how he's kind of handling things.
Well, it's definitely careless. But again, so I'm going to give you the opportunity again to revise your prediction about Mike Waltz's future. But this is from The Guardian. Quote, Trump was briefed on the findings of the forensic review last week around the time he decided to keep Waltz, a person familiar with the matter said. Trump accepted Waltz's mea culpa and has publicly defended him in recent weeks since the group chat situation became public. Waltz also appears to have engendered some sympathy from inside Trump's orbit over the group chat because the White House had authorized the use of Signal, largely because there is no alternative platform to text in real time across different agencies, two people familiar with the matter said. So that's the current update on Mike Waltz's situation. Abe, any revisions to your 2 weeks out now,
yes,
roughly?
Yeah.
No movement whatsoever.
You still think he's gone by Easter? All right.
But who makes him gone?
He will step aside.
He'll fall on the sword, presumably. All right. From Reason magazine, I think we mentioned last week that another Reason magazine article highlighting that the thesis as advanced, certainly in the popular culture at the moment, by like Jonathan Haidt and others about how smartphones are bad. A thesis also advanced by the good website brainiron.com and the multinational media empire that surrounds it. Reason last week had that article about how you're not any happier if you're not using your fucking phone all the time. Or if you're not using social media, rather. It wasn't clear what people were doing with their time otherwise. This week, a study, kids with smartphones are less depressed, anxious, and bullied than peers without them. A large new study finds smartphone ownership positively correlated with multiple measures of well-being in 11 to 13-year-old kids. I'm gonna read from the article, make sure there's a link in the show note, and just to preface it by saying, this article infuriated me because of how it swallows the results of this study without noting any of the obvious problems with the study design and with the results as reported. Quote, it's funny how much media coverage is devoted to anything suggesting that phones might be ruining kids, and how little coverage goes to studies suggesting the opposite. So it goes with a new report from researchers at the University of South Florida that links smartphone ownership among 11 to 13-year-olds with a number of positive indicators of well-being. And then this is from the person working on the study. We went into this study expecting to find what many researchers, teachers, and other observers assume. Smartphone ownership is harmful to children. Instead, most of the time we found the opposite, that owning a smartphone was associated with positive outcomes. Less anxiety, higher self-esteem. They surveyed 1,500 kids age 11 to 13, all of them in Florida, and almost every metric measuring well-being, smartphone owning kids showed better results. For example, more likely to spend person-in time with friends, less likely to report symptoms of anxiety or depression, and more likely to report feeling good about themselves. 80% of kids who own smartphones and 82% of those who own tablets said they felt good about themselves, compared to 69% for those without smartphones and 71% for those without tablets. Asked if they agreed with the statement that life often feels meaningless, 18% of kids with smartphones said yes, compared to 26% of those without their own smartphone. And I'll skip to the end here. No one-size-fits-all answers. In another strike against smartphone alarmists, a group of international experts argued in the BMJ late last month that banning phones and or social media for minors won't necessarily improve their well-being. There are no simple one-size-fits-all answers, they write. Bans do children a disservice by failing to prep them for healthy technology use as adults is such a stupid fucking claim. I cannot imagine how it possibly fucking matters. Anyway, I clicked on the study and because I wanted to know how they came to these conclusions, right? Or how they asked these questions and whom they were asking. And almost all you need to know is that these were asked after being given permission by the parent or legal guardian, right? So it's a survey conducted for young people age 11 to 13. Respondents were recruited and given permission to participate by their parent or legal guardian. The survey was conducted November-December of 2024. Takes about 25 minutes to complete on average. Respondents who qualified and completed the survey were offered compensation via a points value that can be redeemed as a cash equivalent, like a gift card or what have you. Participation rate for this survey was 87% based on the standard definition for non-probability online samples. So I think what that means is that 87% of the people who they reached out to ask if you would do this survey participated, right? So nearly 9 out of 10 people who were asked to participate ended up participating.
Pretty high participation rate.
Which is a hugely high participation rate. I don't know what your criticisms or questions about the way this research was done might be. My reaction to it is that if you're going to ask, I'm going to show you on this list the question that I thought mattered more than anything, and it is this one right here.
I can't see it.
Can you see my mouse?
You can read it out loud.
Owning a smartphone or not?
Right. It's the do you own a smartphone or not? And 1,200 of the respondents own smartphones, and only 300 of them do not. And so you're asking a group of people who own this device, whose parents have given them permission to respond to these questions. You're asking children to self-report how they feel about owning this smartphone. Right. Are they going to give you a reliable answer, right? It's sort of like saying to the 18-year-old, you give the 18-year-old a beer and they drink the beer and you say, hey, how do you feel about that beer? You're like, I got a pretty good buzz going. Right. I like beer. Beer is awesome. And it's not asking the decimated dumbass the next morning who drank 47 of the beers how they feel about the beer.
But it's also not fair because they asked way more people. They should have adjusted the percentage of the people who own the smartphones. And the percentage of... They did, though.
4 out of 5 of the people that responded to this survey who are between 11 and 13 years old own smartphones.
Yeah. And they're happier.
And they are apparently meaningfully, statistically, in some small way, happier and better off than the kids who do not.
Proportionally.
But specifically, these are... I don't know. Maybe it's not as obvious. Maybe I'm doing a poor job of explaining why it's so clear to me why you would get this result by asking this particular group of people. But like, if you're asking a child if they feel good about owning the smartphone, like, of course they're going to say, "I feel good about owning the smartphone. Yeah. I love this fucking thing." The thing about online bullying, right? Like, if you ask 1,500 people, "Have you ever been bullied online?" And a subset of them are non-smartphone, non-tablet owning people. Isn't it highly plausible that if you'd been bullied online, you're not going to be on fucking Instagram anymore, and you're not going to want to have the device in your pocket that is going to that led to you being bullied online? Like that is such a stupid fucking question to ask a group of children, right? And so of course the percentage of kids who continue to own smartphones is going to say, like, they're going to be less likely to have been bullied online because they won't have had that profoundly negative antisocial experience and therefore ditched their fucking smartphone.
It's
but they're also hanging out in real life.
It is odd that the whoever wrote this for Reason magazine, can they use the like phone alarmists? Like basically, so I guess their position, Elizabeth Brown. Her position is that all of this hoopla about the negative effects phones are having on kids is overstated, not unlike like 30 years ago, somebody saying, like smoking or like big oil or like when that the pain medication came about before all of the heroin overdoses happened. Like back then there would be like some studies saying, actually it's not that bad for you, or people are overreacting. Yeah. And then years later you find out, no, people were right on. And to me, it seems like this sounds like a whole lot of bullshit. Like,
well, and self-reported studies are like notoriously like among the worst possible fucking studies, because you're almost certainly not getting the truth here. You're getting a fucking 12-year-old to tell you how you feel about being in the world. Like that doesn't fucking mean anything. It wouldn't
be implausible to produce a survey result saying that children do better when they stay up late, because you're asking the kids, they want to stay up late, but it's not good for them, right? But they may not recognize that. So it's like, what value is it to ask a 11-year-old kid whether or not to have a smartphone? They're going to say, yeah, of course I want to have it.
There's a little bit pertains to the movie we watched.
Does it?
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Anyway, weird back-to-back weeks here with Reason sort of seeming to have the house position that we shouldn't worry too much about, which makes sense from a libertarian perspective.
Do you think that people read them on their phones?
I mean, it would make sense if they just were like hands off. We don't want blah, blah, blah. Like if they were making a libertarian argument, but here they're saying actually phone. I mean, the way they presented the case was that actually phones are good for you. You are healthier. You're more connected. You're less likely to be bullied online. Like what? What are you talking about?
All right, time for some Strassman.
It's now time for America's favorite game show. Did Mark Strassman, CBS News' senior national correspondent, get off a good one?
Dr. Luann Woodward at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. She's the alpha leader fighting the Delta variant.
Strassman gets off a good one.
A couple hours later, the mob trampled the Constitution. And Roseanne Boylan of Kennesaw, Georgia.
Ooh, sorry, Mark. Try again next time.
Grieving sisters struggle to pay off dad's $12,000 funeral bill.
And tonight, with taxes, we turn now to that other certainty in life, death. Most people don't like to talk about it, but the fact is, baby boomers are dying at a rate of 2 a minute, and not planning for the inevitable can leave survivors deep in debt. It is known as funeral poverty. Mark Strassman has tonight's Eye on America.
What a lead-in.
If you think living is expensive these days, try dying.
He was our dad.
Good dad.
Great dad. Great dad.
We met Mary Wenzel and Christine Gabriel, grieving sisters outside Chicago. Their father, George Gabriel, was 85 when he died last August. The retired truck driver had no savings and no life insurance they could collect.
Did you talk to your dad about dying?
Not once.
Not once?
Not once. You don't want to, because then you know the end is near.
They showed us the bill for what they thought was his modest funeral, organized after he died. It was more than $12,000.
And do you have the money?
No, absolutely not. At the time, I lost my father and lost my job on the same day.
For many families, planning a funeral is like planning a wedding, except they only have a few days.
I have to pause it there. What the fuck is he talking about?
So it's like a wedding, but you're throwing it together at the last minute.
I guess, yeah, they're both life events, Bob. One is you have a lot of, runway, and with the other one, you don't.
Gatherings. What?
There must be another clause that he cut out of the copy, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's something else there that he's leaving out in order for that sentence to make any goddamn sense. Like, weddings are like funerals, but you only have a few days to plan them.
Yes.
Big expense.
Death, taxes, weddings, funerals.
Planning a funeral is like planning a wedding, except they only have a few days. And it gets expensive. Nationally, the median cost of a funeral, including casket and burial, is more than $8,000.
It is a difficult subject.
Near Raleigh, North Carolina, Sarah Williams is president of the Funeral Consumers Alliance, an educational nonprofit. Once a month, she hosts one of these get-togethers. They're called death cafes.
Hey, one day you are going to die, so you better talk about it now and face that fact.
Of the 30 people here, about half said this moment was a first. They were now beginning to talk about the end.
Someone dies and you realize you don't have a way to take care of them, and you're left strapped, grieving.
For all the emotion of the moment, death is also the time for a smart consumer decision.
That's exactly right.
And winging it in the moment.
You will lose every time.
Sure, at times the conversation we heard got awkward.
You can legally bury your dead on your property if you follow certain setback rules.
But Williams says what's worse is waiting too long, guessing about someone's wishes, and overpaying. Plan now, save later.
Always shop around. Visit several funeral homes. It will be the biggest gift you ever give your family.
The Illinois sisters have started making $300 monthly payments on their father's funeral bill. At that rate, paying it off will take more than 3 years. Their other worry is their mother. She's now 86 with dementia.
We can't have another $12,000 bill.
So your advice to other people would be what?
Sit down, have that conversation.
Sooner rather than later.
Yes.
The goal should be to rest in peace and prosperity. For Eye on America, Mark Strassman in Huntley, Illinois.
All right, did CBS News' senior national news correspondent, Mark Strassman, get off a good one?
Yes, he did. He kind of stumbled later on, but I love the beginning. If you think living is expensive, try dying.
Strassman gets off a good one.
Very, very much enjoyed that. Although it's not expensive to the dead, right? The person,
right? That's where he loses me here at the end.
The goal should be to rest in peace and prosperity.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, you can't take it with you.
You can't take it with you, Mark.
That's what they say. You can't take it with you is the problem.
Oh, that should be the new RIPP. You know, it's not a typo. Peace and prosperity.
My dad, when his wife died last year, he said, "Don't die. It's a real pain in the ass for everybody else."
Yes.
I don't want to dispute that this guy wasn't a great father, right? I'm sure he was a perfectly fine dad.
He's not really into planning, I guess. He just wants to see what happens and get closer, and then he died.
Yeah.
So this is why I suggest meal planning for the weeks that you're busy.
Why is it so expensive, though? Like, just the plot of land is...
Because it can be.
Okay.
No, it's the same as weddings. Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Not have a funeral? Not bury your dad?
But isn't that why cremation has ticked up as far as...
I mean, that's expensive too, right?
But they charge
expensive?
what they can because they can.
Average cost of cremation.
Over under $1,500.
Average cost of cremation in the U.S. ranges from around $1,000 to $3,000 for a direct cremation. Abe setting the line on the fucking nose.
Nice. Well, it was a little over.
$3,000. I mean, what involves?
And $3,500 to $7,000 for cremation with a service. So if you want to have the party, you're gonna shell out extra, obviously. But because you have to go to the fucking funeral home, you know.
They have to get someone to do something.
There's a service often.
I see a lot of bloat in this industry. They're
well, exactly. That's the thing. It's like weddings.
Yeah.
If you,
you've got to pay somebody to handle the dead body.
Yeah,
right?
but it's reasonable.
You don't I'm sorry. I know that your parents had 8 kids, but when one or both of them die, one of you isn't going to be like, okay, I'm on body duty.
Yes.
Right. I'll get dear old dad to and from the rec center or wherever we're going to have this funeral service because we have a connect there and don't want to pay a funeral home for 90 minutes worth of rental space. You're not going to take charge of it. I'm sure there's laws also about who's permitted to handle such things.
She said you're allowed to bury your parents in your yard if you want. Remember when Mike D had that roommate who was a mortician?
No, I don't.
Oh, I remember. And he had a Halloween party, and his roommate kind of arrived slightly late, like in the party time. But he walked in from his work, and he came in his work clothes, which is just a suit, and he looked like a fucking mortician. Wow. Like, he was very pale and tall, and someone was like, "What are you?" And he just went, "A mortician." It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there's people get taken advantage of here because, it's the end of life and you're grieving, and it's like, well, if you don't spend the extra $750 on the nicer casket, is it because you didn't love your dear old dad enough?
Right.
Well, and you just want to get it over with. You're like, I don't want to talk about, just do whatever.
Oh, man.
So many of the expenses when you're unfamiliar with the industry or it's an uncommon expense.
Yeah.
And you go and you're like, and they're like, all right, it's $650. And you're like, all right, well, I don't.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that seems like a lot, but like, I don't fucking know.
Right.
Like, I guess that's what it costs. And it's like, all right, I have my credit card number.
I always thought it was a pain in the ass upselling a 2-liter, at work. Hey, you want cheese sticks with that? But now doing that in this industry, like, hey, you want to upsell like coffins to the grieving? That seems like a shitty way to go about things.
Oh, they absolutely do.
There was a Penn and Teller bullshit episode about it.
Yeah.
1,000 years ago.
Like, was the entire funeral industry is bullshit? Was that their argument?
Well, the name of the show was bullshit.
Right, but was that the way they?
Yeah. It was like death. Funerals. Okay. Yes.
I mean, there's like life insurance. There's no like funeral insurance. I mean, you're gonna die at some point.
No, you can buy that sort of thing.
Sure,
for sure.
there is.
Yeah,
but usually you just set aside. You don't need insurance. You just say, "I've money set aside for this."
Right.
I think that like the best, like he's not wrong. Like I know, rest in peace and prosperity. Obviously, very silly, but like a pretty good thing to do for your family would, like, if you're the sort of person who wants to have a meaningful funeral, which I'm not sure that I am. Like, it doesn't seem like my kind of scene. Even with me being dead, like I don't need people gathering to talk about me.
I'm not going to throw you one.
Well, you will if those are my fucking wishes.
You'll be dead.
I put them on paper and I set aside some money for it. But this is what
you have money to set aside.
What I'm saying.
That's
like,
cute.
A fun thing would be
that I don't have.
A fun thing would be. What you fucking laugh, this fucking bitch. You don't know when I'm gonna make money.
I don't. I don't have any idea. I've been begging.
You've been siphoning off money for your demise, Bob, secretly.
Yeah. A fun thing would be to save up a big pile of money and say, for my funeral, like, here, this is the list of people who I want invited. They each have $1,000 travel stipend, right? And they're all going to have to come from the far-flung places of the world. And, like, you set aside, like, fucking 50 grand for a big going-away party for yourself. Like, fine, go ahead and do that. But, like, I don't know. Otherwise, like, it's just such a... I mean, we sort of semi-experienced this recently where my stepdad or whatever.
Whatever.
One of my brother's fathers died not all that long ago. And there was a moment where I was going to try to go to New Jersey, and I was going to drive. I was going to go, but I got sick, so whatever. But like the instinct is, hey, let's all gather, right? But it is like, it's not just the funeral expense. Like it's potentially like between a few hundred to a couple of $1,000s for somebody to have to not go to work and travel across the country.
Most people do just get to take off work whenever they want, though. It's me that can't do that.
No, not most people. The service economy is the dominant economy in this. You think most people? No, the people that we interact with are white collar folks who have things like benefits and personal time off. That is not most people. Most people cannot just drop everything and travel across the country for a funeral. So, like, whatever. I don't know why I'm going on about it. It's just when you talk about what a great fucking dad your dad was, part of being a great fucking dad in an important way is making sure that you don't stick your fucking kids with a $12,000 bill that they can't afford when you kick it.
I have two great parents who dealt with this already. Like, I don't got to worry about it. It's great.
Yeah.
So when I die, I want the people like Bob and Julia, I guess Abe, because I talk to him all the time, People I talk to all the time, they're allowed to know and talk about it with each other. They're not allowed to
Can
tell.
you imagine if I didn't tell Abe and you just stopped coming on the podcast?
No, that's what I mean. You'd have to currently you'd have to tell Abe, but like hopefully this is in the future.
Yeah, I don't know, Abe. She doesn't want to be. She's watching TV.
Hopefully in the future
She's on the treadmill.
there will be, whatever. My point is, unless you're super close,
I would definitely have murdered you if I was not telling Abe that you were dead for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and I come and visit
Yeah.
and like, that's weird.
she went to Julia's. Isn't she in Ukraine? Yep, she went to Ukraine. It's weird. Must have died there. Anyway, you're not allowed to tell anybody.
I see.
You can talk amongst yourselves.
Yes.
Do you whatever. Don't fucking tell anybody for like a year.
Nice.
And if somebody asks, be like, I don't know, I haven't heard from her. Or just like, ugh, like brush it off.
Yeah.
Just like, ugh, whatever. She's fine. She's fine. And then a year later, you're like, oh, she died.
Yes.
They don't get to be sad.
Yes.
They don't get to be sad about it because they didn't fucking talk to me for a year anyway. It's great.
It's only reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, I think I would just have to respond, no, she's dead to me.
No, that's the thing. That's the joke. I want Julia specifically to say she's dead to me. And then for someone to be like, did you ever talk to your best friend again? And she'd be like, oh, she died.
Yeah.
She actually is dead.
Also dead to everyone
and they'd be
else.
like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she'd be like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
It's been a year. She was dead to me and everyone. Oh, it'd be so good.
Well, they have, there are different traditions. Aren't there some cultures where, like, the grieving spouse is, like, wearing a type of clothing, like black, for, like, 40 days or some thing,
Yeah.
So it could be like a coat
the
of...
Jews have to, like, sit Shiva or what have you
Yeah, for a week.
A week.
And you split the ribbon.
What is sitting Shiva?
Sitting.
You're, like,
You
cross-legged?
just sit.
Don't do work.
You just sit and mourn for a week.
Okay.
And people come visit and pay their respects to the surviving family members.
Can you do other things also?
No, you're supposed to just sit. You're supposed to, like, the people come and help you.
All right, last thing. Headline AP. A day at Uranus just got 28 seconds longer. And we're going to leave it at that.
Good.
I'm not going to make the obvious fat joke that is begging to be made about Uranus. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too. You can find the show on Substack.
For now.
brainiron.substack.com for more from us, including and perhaps not limited to the Billboard Hot 100 game. The only place that you can find the Billboard Hot 100 game is brainiron.substack.com. The opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from Mark. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week?
I did not, no. I was almost considering making a pit stop in Pooler, Georgia on the way back on Sunday. Pooler, Georgia, which is like right outside of Savannah, apparently has the world's tallest IMAX screen. And
the fuck is Pooler, Georgia?
That's one of the good Georgia players was from there.
Oh, really? There was a player from there.
I forget. Oh. I don't know who, but that sounds familiar.
It was going to add like 90 minutes to my trip on the way back. But the problem was that the only thing they're showing in IMAX is this Minecraft thing that I have no idea what it's about. So I was like, fuck it. Well,
that's why you go see the movie, Abe. They will tell you what it's about.
Yes, but if it was maybe on the way back, I would have considered it, but I decided against it. There wasn't anything.
So Pooler it's basically appears to be like a suburb of Savannah.
Yeah, that's what he said.
30,000 people.
Yeah.
That's bigger than I would have guessed.
Yeah. But, so no movies this week. There wasn't anything interesting anyways, although big numbers for Minecraft. It made like a fuck ton of money. Seemed like the box office is back. I did not contribute to it. I did watch Adolescence. I finished the last 2 episodes of Adolescence. Not a bad show. I mean, again, if you have kids, maybe it's different. I don't have any kids, but they have 2 children, and one of them, the boy, the impressionable boy, got a little stabby with a classmate, and it turns out that he's been kind of like absorbing negative male impressions from his old man and like online and the Andrew Tate types and his friends, and it all led to this thing. And the whole time it's not so much of like whether or not he did it, because like the very first episode they kind of spell it out what happened. There's like CCTV footage of the event. The whole time it's just like the family trying to reconcile what they know of their kid and what he's been accused of doing, and the neighborhood, the community, like responding to the family in negative ways.
No,
it's a very well done movie show. I can understand why there would be some people who would not want to watch it. There's a lot of talk about this one shot kind of the scenes where it's just one singular shot. This has been a recurring thing. People always marvel at the fact that they're able to do these things. I remember the first season of True Detective, there was a scene where there was like a one continuous shot, and people were like, oh my God, this was amazing.
Well, that was an action sequence.
The reason that, and even by the time they were doing it in True Detective, it was something of a trope, right? Like it's not, and like Fincher has had some really great long takes. Stanley Kubrick,
Children of Men,
famously,
I think, was another example of that. There's been...
Right, Children of Men has an awesome one, right? And the ones that are meaningful and good are they come out of the context of the thing that you're watching, right? Like there's a good the reason that it works so well in that True Detective shot in like episode 5 or 6 or something of True Detective is because it builds the chaos and craziness of the scene as it's going on. It helps amplify the feeling that you're getting from watching it unfold. And it seems like it's now becoming a thing where it's just directors and cinematographers just showing off for the sake of showing off.
Right. And I mean, it was fine in this setting because it kind of was playing out like a play, but just like recorded.
Yeah, I was going to say, have people heard of theater?
Yeah,
because
so basically it's kind of
that's what theater is.
There aren't that many characters. The child actor that they got was pretty good. It was kind of a well done kind of thing. And again, I don't have any kids, so it was like no, like whatever. But like watching it, I thought it was well done. The way they did it. And, at the end, the father is like, his old man beat him up, like as the generations of past used to do. And he did none of that. And he's like, so how come I turned out okay with the beatings and my kid is a killer without, like it's kind of like just like, what the fuck? Like, how is this possible? Like, and he just kind of couldn't wrap his, head around what happened. Basically, they were kind of giving the kid some latitude. He's a kid, he's like in his room at all times, so you're thinking, he's becoming a teenage boy and I don't know, jerking off in there, I don't know what's going on, maybe just kind of cut him some slack. But he's like going into this world of like just impressionable things that young boys
has there been an anti-woke backlash to this, given its sort of maybe you shouldn't listen to Joe Rogan and Andrew Tate a whole bunch ethos?
On the whole, the feedback has been positive. There have been some of that. I just haven't seen too many of. There was like some British politician saying that this is like an anti-male whatever, or some some angle. Like this is
men should stop doing so much fucking killing,
right?
And most of the killing is done by men.
And if not by them, then for them, or because of them.
I think there's a subreddit called Women Are Violent Too. It's like r/Women Are Violent Too. Which,
wow.
Yeah. No. And and it's the same thing with like black
to
crime.
Men when they're being attacked, or to other people when the men make them do that.
Like, it is the case. Women, because really all it is women are human too. You could just put it that way, right? Like, surely obviously there are plenty of awful fucking women in the world who do unspeakable things and are violent in the way that they comport themselves. It's just funny that like there's a subreddit, Women Are Violent Too.
Right.
We watched Inside Out 2.
Oh, look at that.
And we watched some Shoresy and that sex show.
First on Inside Out 2, which was not as good as the original, and the original is one that I already had problems with. And Inside Out 2 makes my problems with the first one. It sort of highlights them, I think. It sort of makes them all the more plain.
What was your problem with the first one? I forget.
I've never quite fully teased out my objection to Inside Out 1. I've never quite been able to vocalize what my problem with it is. And I think that the second one helped clarify it a little bit. I'm not prepared to make it a full-blown take or anything.
Does it
yet.
boil down to feelings aren't facts?
It boils down to our whole identities are not and cannot be summed up by our feelings. And these are two movies that leave no room for anything but emotions as what our core identities are, right?
But it is about a tween.
I understand.
So at that age,
it is made
it kind of can.
It is made by adults, and it is a symptom of a belief that we are purely psychological creatures. That psychology is the root to figuring out all that is important in the human animal. And that is something that I thoroughly reject. I think that psychology is perhaps one route to understanding the human animal, but it is certainly not the only route, and it is certainly not sufficient to the task of defining the human animal. And this idea that and crucially, there are all of these emotions running rampant inside this, inside all of the characters in these movies. There's no talk of rationality. There's no talk of thought. There is only the emotions, which, unless you're going to assign them to some sort of a soul, unless you're going to assign them to something metaphysical, can only be understood as sort of hormonal or neurological thumps and squirts over which the individual exercises no control, right? It's just a feeling arises. Right. And yeah, I get it. It's all a big metaphor, right? I'm not that fucking dumb that we're expected to take this stuff literally. But if I'm looking for what bothers me about these movies, it's this notion that we are, because it's not just the teenager or the tween who's thoroughly dominated by their emotions. When we go into the heads of the adults in the movie as well, right, those people are ruled exclusively by their emotions as well. I don't
know that they're necessarily ruled by them. They exist there.
I mean, they're fucking, what do they call it? Like mission control or something? Like we're clearly in the brain of the person, right? Like that's sort of what they're getting at here. Anyway, it leaves something to be desired in terms of explaining the human being, and these movies sort of purport to explain the human being, right? Like it's that's what you're doing when you go inside.
But one facet of it, anyways, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong. You can't cover every ground in one movie, right?
No, but it doesn't leave room for the idea that there's something else going inside the person.
It does. Her personality islands.
No, but that exists within the command and control of the emotions.
No, they're in the control center. The personality islands are out there with the memories and stuff out there.
Right, and all of the beliefs and ideologies are birthed through the emotional process. You cannot tell me that this movie has any other idea about how the human identity is formed than through an emotional response to stimuli.
I would never begin to pretend that I could know what someone meant when they were making a movie. It's rude to do that. That's
what
why
the fuck are you doing watching the thing then?
Consuming
of course
it. Enjoying it.
Jesus Christ. We have such a fundamental difference in terms of how we approach art.
I didn't like taking English classes because they're like, what'd this guy mean? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. What's that matter?
Did you enjoy it anyways, or were you like...
You make me sad. That is my response to you, Lori.
You make me sad.
You make me sad. Yeah, I enjoyed it just fine.
It was fine. Not as good as the first one at all.
But I still have these sort of massive underlying problems with it. And I don't think it's not up to par with the other Pixar classics, I don't think. It's fine, and I don't think the first one is up to par with the other Pixar classics either. But yeah, whatever. The kids liked it, which I guess is all that matters ultimately. And then we're watching Shoresy season 4. I think we're 3 or 4 episodes in now. And Shoresy season 4 it's almost the definition of decadence in television making, where they did 3 tight, awesome seasons, which indulge in asides and in in its own sort of insular world in ways that are amusing and fun and forgivable because of how exciting and fun it is. In season 4, and the reason why I'm okay with it is that thematically it sort of works. So if you watch the first 3 seasons of Shoresy, he's a hockey player throughout the first 3 seasons. At the end of season 3, spoilers, he becomes injured in a way that he cannot continue.
Well, and he's old.
Right, he's old, he's concussed, he can't play hockey anymore, is the bottom line. And so he has to move on to a new phase in life, and so he's sort of figuring that out. And so,
and at the end of the 3rd season, it says this is the end of part 1. Like it knows.
It knows that something different is going on here. But in season 4, it's very much like we're in hangout mode to some extent. It's like, yep, here we are. We get to keep making fucking TV, and we don't really have a story to tell anymore in a way that we had a story to tell before. Yeah. But you like us, and we like that we get to make TV, so we're just going to keep fucking making TV. And so in that way, you can sort of see where, well, we could have just ended it. And if this was a British television show, it's like, oh, nope, done. You told the story, fuck off. We don't need to do this anymore. But the Canadians are going to let it keep riding here, which is fine. Like, it's a perfectly enjoyable hangout kind of show to watch, but it's lost a little bit of its vitality or its life force in some way. And then finally, we watched on Hulu, I believe, is where this show is, a show called Dying for Sex. It stars Michelle Williams. It's an FX show, and it's about a woman in her 40s, I believe, who gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. She's survived cancer for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years or something, but has had a relapse. It's metastasized in her bones, and now she has a death sentence basically for the next, within the next 4 or 5 years. She's almost certain to die, and there's nothing they can do about the cancer. And her husband won't bone her anymore. He's become this caretaker in her life, got her through the cancer, but they've lost the ability to connect physically. And so she decides that she's leaving her very supportive, at least emotionally and psychologically and medically, logistically supportive husband in favor of attempting to get out there and get plowed again and to feel physically desired. And it's fine. I think we watched, 2 episodes?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Is this the first season?
Yeah, first season. I don't know if they're planning
Can't be that many.
Right, unless they, if it's successful, they're like, oh, it turns out it wasn't terminal after all.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine and amusing, and I don't feel any, great desire to, make sure we get back to this and don't want to miss the rest of this. But I think we'll probably continue watching it. Michelle Williams is great. I like her as an actress.
Any other known people? Is the husband some...
Michelle Williams?
No, besides Michelle Williams. Is there any...
The girl who played Mona Lisa Saperstein plays the best friend.
Okay, so there's a best friend.
Who the fuck is Mona Lisa Saperstein?
She was on Parks and Rec. I don't know the actress's name, but on Parks and Rec, she was very funny.
Gotcha. I'm not familiar with any of the other people except for...
She's a stand-up. She's a comic. She's a comedian actress.
The doctor was in Succession. I recognized his face, but couldn't really place him right away. Just a couple of familiar TV faces.
And you said this is on Hulu?
It's on, it's an FX show. Yeah, and it's so funny because, you watch on FX... it very much has that FX house style. And you don't even really know what it is, except you know that you're FX. Watching an FX show.
It's like they're all happening in the same universe. Right. Like the Aziz Ansari show, which I guess was Netflix, but that show too. But Louis and...
Right, I think Aziz's show owes something to Louis more than it owes to the FX house style. But Louis also very much exemplifies the FX house style. And... for whatever reason, there's just something about it.
They all if all those characters met, it would make sense. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be throwing The Office in or something. It's no, that's a different universe. Yeah. But all these characters could meet, and it would not feel wrong.
Is this a 30-minute or 60-minute kind of?
Yeah, that's why we ended up watching it because it popped up on some. I don't know if there was an article about it, and then I saw an advertisement for it also. But I saw it a couple of different times on my phone, and then I went to it on the app, It's like, 27 minutes? Yeah, we can do that. Okay. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, if it was an hour-long thing, I don't think I would have pressed play.
Well, and it would be, like, not as light if it's an hour.
Yeah.
Like, it's heavier. By making it 30 minutes, you're telling me it's at least, like, kind of funny and light.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say also, like, the hook of the wife who leaves her husband to go get plowed out in the world is something that I wouldn't want to watch. Like, it's just not a story that I want to engage with for various reasons. Not my scene. But they do such a good job of making the husband seem like a weenie. Right. That it's like, okay, this is they've justified her decision fairly effectively here in the early going, so it's fine.
Was there an ultimatum for the husband? Like, hey, this is not working?
She made it pretty explicitly clear what she needed.
Basically, he just disconnected from that part of the relationship. He's just, this is...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he just can't do it anymore. Which is, it's very... And part of it is, like, I think Michelle Williams is sort of beautiful. And it's like, this fucking schlub can't get it up for Michelle Williams. Like, do her a favor, man. Like, get out of your own fucking head. And he's, like, to go back to the psychology thing, like, he's such a fucking product of the therapy culture and the psychology culture, this moment that we're all living in, that similar to my Inside Out problems. It's like, just fucking stop with the therapy nonsense and to use a Shoresyism, give your balls a tug and get back in there, man. Anyway, was that it? Anything else that we watched?
White Lotus.
Oh, yeah, we got to talk about the White... This is turning into quite a fucking marathon episode of this goddamn podcast.
Because you yelled about Donald Trump. Whenever you get off on Donald Trump, you're unstoppable.
All right, White Lotus, Season 3 has wrapped up. Before I give my obnoxious reaction to it, Abe, what did you think?
You know, I was surprised by how much violence there was. I mean, 5 people, I think, died. Like, for a moment, I was thinking, look, I don't know.
So we've got, spoilers here, count. The 2 bodyguards are dead.
The old man.
The old man and then
our buddies.
Walter Goggins
the tragic pair, Walton Goggins and Amy Lou Wood.
Right. So basically, 5 people died, and Goggins' character, his name is Rick, right? So, like, he is, like, the absolute worst. Earlier, Bob, you were talking about Inside Out and, all this emotion stuff. But, like, that character, it doesn't matter how much logic or rationality someone has. If you don't have command of your emotions, it's going to overwhelm everything else, right? And so you have this guy who cannot. This is
also not a person with a great command of logic and rationality.
Right, but he has this hanger-on girlfriend who was, what an idiot. You should have left him a long time ago. Not her fault, I know.
She's not a hanger-on girlfriend. She's good.
He gives her no evidence to support her claim that this is some sort of meant-to-be thing.
This is what's driving me crazy about some of the post-game coverage of this show, which is like, these are tragic lovers who are whatever. And, like, he loved her so much and she loved him. What evidence were we presented with that he gave one flying fucking shit about her at all? And the answer is none. Even his "that's the plan" will be together forever felt like a fucking brush off to me. And I know it was meaningful to her in the moment. So I guess, like, you got to hand him that, right? Like, at least he gave her that much. But, like, no indication whatsoever that even after he had this moment of self-actualization and realization that he could let this fucking shit go, he still didn't seem to be remotely interested in engaging with her in any meaningful way. He was just sitting there dealing with her pablum about horoscopes and shit, right? He's like, okay, fucking Aries, whatever. Like, he didn't fucking care about anything that she had to say at any point. She's an idiot for thinking that they are intertwined soulmates. Like, I assume the sex must be good, but, like, I just don't understand what the fuck she thought she was doing with this guy, because he gives no indication that he gives a shit at all.
Yeah, he's just moping around. He's literally, like, I mean, there are other characters that deserve this, but one of the worst fucking characters. He is such, I mean, played well by the Goggins guy, but, like, everywhere he goes, he's just ruined things with this mopey fucking attitude. Like, his friend... I'm glad Sam Rockwell was able to bounce back after his bender. But, like, every time he's hanging out with him, bad things happen. He goes to his girlfriend. I don't know why he didn't think that the owner would show up there after threatening to kill him, but they had the confrontation. And he can't help himself. He tries to get to the shrink to try to help him out, and because she just has no time for him, he's like, I have to react in this emotionally volatile way because of reasons, and he just kills everybody, just destroys his whole life, destroys his girlfriend's life, he destroys other people's lives because he can't fucking process emotions. Like, he cannot process whatever he thinks is going in his head. And
it's also a bad character. I'm sorry, Mike White. But first of all, he must be a modestly or moderately successful human being.
What a great shooter, though. Boy, he is killing people with relative ease. Holy shit.
Full John Wick. It's so completely unbelievable. But whatever. He's got some money.
We don't know what he did for a living.
We don't know what he did for a living. And obviously we know that he's been in the underworld to some extent, right? Based on his interactions with the Sam Rockwell character. But like, he has some means, right? He's got the younger girlfriend. We're supposed to believe that this is a similar relationship to the other May-December romances that we see throughout the show here, which is that he's a man of means and she's a younger woman who maybe they initially hooked up because of that sort of an arrangement before it became a true love story, at least in her mind. But like, how can a person have gotten to 58 or 63 or however old this guy is meant to be at this? I guess he's not supposed to be that old, but at least in his 50s, right? And be still such a fucking victim of circumstance. Right. How can he still think that like he had something so meaningfully taken from him when he was 3 years old or 7 years old or whatever it was? Like, shut up, you fucking baby. What are you talking about?
The other character who I did not care for after all the moping. I don't like moping, but the stupid fucking lorazepam dad played by Jason Isaacs. I can't believe this guy was actually going to go through with a family annihilator plan to like, he's basically like asking them, could you do without? And his whole family was like, nope, well, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. And the youngest one was like, yeah, that's fine, I can go without a house. It's like, okay, you're going to live. Like, he's literally deciding who's going to go down with him.
What if he had instead asked him, would you be able to live without a house if I murder-suicided everyone that loves you?
Without a house is one thing, but to be the one survivor because you answered his cryptic question right, like that would ruin that kid forever. And I know this is a 18-year-old kid, but just the Blender's clean enough thing was, I guess 18-year-olds do that. I don't know. It just seems kind of like a like, all right, whatever.
He thinks what he's making is more protein shake.
So he's probably thinking, oh, this is probably just my brother's
or
protein
pina colada, I
remains.
guess.
Which obviously, by the way, like, this plan was never going to work.
The killing everybody plan?
Right. Like, even if they had all drank the pina coladas, like, he drank a significant amount of the poison and then just puked his guts out and lived. Right. So, like, what are we...
That is true, yeah. Maybe he's younger and he can tolerate... I don't know. Maybe his body rejected it.
Well, who knows? Whatever.
What a weirdly cruel... I know Mike White doesn't, as I've said before, has a very dim view of his fellow human being. But, like, this was so... And it was so clearly telegraphed that he was going to drink the fucking poison, right? Like, it was super obvious to me when, because earlier on, older brother is like, nobody's going to make you a man, you got to do it yourself. And that's that's in a moment in which they are talking about the protein shakes, right? So, like, clearly he's going to drink the poison protein shake by the end of the episode, and then he does it, and I know he lives, but it struck me as incredibly cruel and manipulative to have this sort of thing happen. And I know he's doing like big Shakespearean-esque or Greek style tragedy work here, but like, it just felt heavy-handed and fucking stupid to me.
I do want to say the mother praying to Jesus against Buddha, and that scheme that her daughter is too used to the comforts of her reality and like her abandoning her plans. Now, it could be complicated by the fact that her younger brother also wanted to tag along, but it seems like she just, I don't know what idea she had in her head, what it meant to be in this monastery for a year, but it seemed like she couldn't cut it for one night. And
she can't even, she's the chick who goes glamping and doesn't like that she doesn't have a shower, right?
But just the whole time she's like admitting to herself and to her family how she's not who she thought she was. She's too used to this, and just the face of the mother, just so proud. Just
it's the second best. Like the best moments of this season are Amy Lou Wood's reaction faces when she's hearing about incest between bros, and Parker Posey's face when her prayer to Jesus is being redeemed.
And the icing on the cake. It would be offensive not to enjoy it because other people don't have it. That was perfect. Just
the dimmest possible view of humanity. That the one person in the family with something resembling a conscience who has some idea that maybe the lifestyle that she's been raised in is bad in an important way, and that her mother's a fucking psychopath. And she determines, in fact, that she just likes air conditioning a whole lot.
And organic food. I don't know if she could suss it out, but yeah.
And then, not to harp on the dim view of humanity thing, but I was so unimpressed by Belinda giving the Tanya speech to Porn Shy. The same exact rejection
words
that she had received in Hawaii a few years ago, now doling it out on the back end. And like, I don't know. Like, why not just give her a happy ending? Why
that
not?
Was a happy ending.
Take the money and run. Boy, that kid came in the clutch.
$5 million? That's a happy ending.
I would not have. I was thinking he was going to go up to like $1 million, but when he went with, I'm like, man, this kid's got his MBA degree just right. I mean, that worked out pretty well. Although you would think the feds who are looking for this guy are going to be a little suspicious of this money transfer, but I guess that's for the next season. Overall, I will say I saw some disappointment online.
Not to harp on that, but like, you know what I wouldn't do with $5 million wired into my bank account? Go back to the United States where people worry about those sorts of things, right?
I don't know
that seems like you're going to be calling attention to yourself.
They were going?
Yeah, she's going. I mean, I think they're going back to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I think she's leaving. She should probably make a pit stop somewhere else. Not just leave before the guy kills her or whatever, but like
go to the Philippines, obviously.
Yeah. Go somewhere where you can set up a Swiss bank account or a somewhere in the Caymans or something. Yeah. You know, you don't bring that money home with you, you idiot.
Did you enjoy the resolution with Among the Girls?
No, and I will tell you why. Although I will say that the Lori character gave
Carrie Coon,
Carrie Coon gave the best speech of the season, probably in her reaction to her friends, and I don't think that it was earned because her two friends did not tell the truth in that moment. Like, I think that the Trumpy church wife friend said something close to the truth with her stupid metaphor about our gardens are in bloom now, and now we get to enjoy the flowers or enjoy the harvest or whatever after a lifetime of tending to the gardens. But Michelle Monaghan's speech was fucking utter horseshit. Sorry, Michelle, we were here all week. We saw how miserable and catty and shitty you were. And she's saying that this was like the time of her life and she's never been happier. And this is exactly where she wants to be and who she wants to be. And she's just so fucking unbearably fucking happy. No, you're not, you fucking liar. Like, and she proceeds to do the thing that makes her an intolerable human being for 2 minutes. And then we go to the friend, Lori, who says, actually, I've been fucking miserable this week. And though she tries to put a neat bow on the entire friendship thing and how what matters is the time that we spend together, not necessarily any of the rest of it. Like, that's a nice sentiment, and it's a wonderfully delivered moment in television. But it's not like to me, she's sitting at a table with two people who are not her actual friends, right? And who have not done a good job of revealing themselves as actually good people, and specifically, you don't have to be good people to be good friends, but not actually good friends either.
That scene made me really excited to see Julia.
Yeah, I'm sure. Whatever.
I know. It's just, it's funny.
It matters to me that if you're sitting there with what are supposed to be your three best friends, that you should expect at a bare minimum that they are in that moment revealing themselves to be their authentic selves. And if this is their authentic selves, then Michelle Monaghan is an empty fucking suit, right? There's no there. She's just a false front. And like, what does that say about human friendship? It offers a very dim view of humanity, actually, if we're supposed to believe that what those two other blondes said in that moment was a representation of their true selves. If that is their true selves, then there's nothing there.
Right. It seemed like they were getting along very well in the montage afterwards, but
yeah, sure, absolutely, getting along. I don't care for. I mean, whatever. You take the good with the bad. With television in general, Mike White has a deeply cynical view of his fellow man. And I don't think that gets appreciated very much. Like in none of the coverage of this show do I see people talking about how deeply cynical this is. It's similar to the end of Mad Men, where I thought that the correct read on the end of Mad Men was the deeply cynical one. And I don't care to rehash the whole thing. But the reaction to it was, no, this is Don Draper actually achieving something like enlightenment. Right. This is Don Draper finding his zen, finding his peace, and coming to terms with who he is. And I read it in the exact opposite way, that this was actually a very cynical read. And when I read some of these articles, and granted, I'm reading fan reaction stuff mostly, right? Like to the people who write for the culture sites are mostly just fans. Right. They're not TV critics in a meaningful way. True. They're mostly just fans writing about this stuff. And then reading interviews from the actors who played these characters, like they think that they're having a meaningful human experience. And so they're the wrong people to expect to get the true intent of what Mike White is trying to do here out of, because they think that they're portraying like the depths of human emotion, right? They seem to truly believe that they're revealing the humanity of these people. And if that's the case, like to me, all of it just feels so fucking cynical, and nobody else seems to view what's going on here through that lens. And maybe that's just a reflection of my own cynicism. Ultimately, I don't know.
It is interesting you mentioned that, because okay, if you do the math here, so like Belinda, she knows that this guy Gregory did a thing, and she's willing to overlook it for money, right? So that's her decision. Like, fuck all of that, what happened with the murder. I'm going to get my money and pursue a life of comfort.
Right, and also break the heart of the guy who I had a crush on.
Basically, it's like now that person's playing that.
You've known for a week. I don't care.
Yeah, I think that he can get over. He's like, whatever. Gaytalk, our boy, he could have done the Buddhist thing, did the right thing, but he's shooting a guy who had his back turned to him because that.
Shooting a guy who's carrying a dead body in the back. Right. A person who you could have slowly walked over to and apprehended after you're like, okay, let's get her to the hospital, and then we'll deal with you in a non-mortal sort of way, right? There's just no reason to shoot him except to betray everything it is that you profess to believe in, and in order to get a promotion and to get the girl. In so
doing, he's rewarded handsomely. Like the girl, because she was like, well, we're not going to have another date, you fucking dope. You're going to quit and start something else. And he does this. He's back on the mend with her. He has this new job. Like everything's going great for him, right? So basically, that's a second character who did the wrong thing. Rick Goggins, the Goggins guy, he could have just fucking stepped away, but he decided to kill the guy who turned out to be his dad. The old man, instead of like confronting him and telling him that he's the dad, he wants to just fuck with him one more time by telling him, oh, your slutty mother is a liar too. And like, no one made the right decision.
That moment when he walks over to him in the restaurant and confronts him, I'm sorry, it is so thoroughly unbelievable that they cannot find Walton Goggins in this resort. Like there's only two dopes who run around in opposite circles, unable to locate this guy. What are you talking? Like just it was so poorly constructed as an action sequence. You have to suspend a lot of disbelief, I know, watching television, but the idea that he could just wander about the hotel, to say nothing of the fucking poor decision-making by the guy, to go back to the hotel that's owned by the guy whose life he just threatened and think, yeah, he's going to let things slide, I'm sure.
And even the dad, instead of confronting his family about his fuck-ups, he was willing to kill them almost, and he went on the point of actually doing it before he said, I can't go through with it. But everybody was basically doing the bad things. Like, everybody kind of broke bad. And I guess you're right. Maybe the analysis never seemed to be looking.
There's no talk in any of the analysis about how these are all awful, awful, awful human beings and what it suggests about Mike White's view of humanity, which is very dim. This is a profoundly cynical show. The message of the show is objectively humans are bad, right? They are selfish, self-interested, narcissistic pieces of shit. The rich ones are the worst of the bunch, but by no means are even the most pure-hearted among you are going to be corrupted by your base desires and your desire for comfort in particular, right? Like that is the bottom line here. And it's weird to read interviews of the actors talking about like how heartbroken they are over the experience of having to live in these people for so long.
So it's interesting that you say heartbreak. Well, you sort of did. This is now 3 out of 3 seasons where somebody dies suddenly and we are not left with anyone mourning. And there was a minute there, or 2 different instances where that was going to happen. One with the youngest brother, where the whole family was going to be mourning. And then once with Chelsea, where we were going to watch Walter live the rest of his life knowing what he did. But then he was put out of his misery. Right. So, like, this is the 3rd time out of 3 where we, the audience, get to, like, not feel so sad after all. Like, nobody's missing these people. This is fine.
And there's no ramification. I mean, the Ratliffs, the father's like, hey, we love each other. We'll work through this. But you never actually see...
no consequences for anyone.
That fucking guy, like, and it's such a fucking trope now to the point of it being a cliche, where the bad patriarch says, well, what matters more than anything else is family, right? Like, it's Tony Soprano, it's Walter White, and it's this fucking guy talking about, well, the only thing that matters is family, after he's done now everything, he's done everything short of fucking murdering them to tear down the foundations on which they've relied for their entire lives. Anyway, I don't know. Like, it's a fine show. The thing about television, I think, in general, is like it's this entirely disposable, like purposefully disposable medium that we're not meant to really engage with. But like we do engage with it. We take it super fucking seriously. But like at the same time, I feel like I'm the only one who recognizes how fucking cynical, like what the actual message of the fucking show is. Right. And the message of the show is humans are a despicable and irredeemable race.
Right. I could not believe. I guess it doesn't hurt to ask, but the Russian dude saying, "I know you know, but please, I don't want to get deported. Please help me out," and that actually worked. Was amazing. Like they got to continue. They're like, "Hey, we got to make our money somehow, and just don't say anything." And the guy was totally fine.
Yeah, with it. on the back of corrupting one of 2 blameless, faultless, and pure-hearted good people that were available to us as characters, right? By poisoning Guy Tok's heart, do the Russians continue in their shitty ways there on the island? Was the reveal by Sri Tala that you just killed your father necessary? I guess it was necessary to the character.
Yeah. Yes.
Because but it was screamingly obvious to everyone else.
Yeah,
by
but
that
it was.
point, right?
That's the thing. I like that they gave us 3 episodes. It's like he's not going to tell him right away. Like he could have. He could when we saw him the first time. We could have learned.
He could have told him. He could have told him multiple times, and he chose not to. Because he's a fucking piece of shit. Obviously,
and the whole time, like your dad was no saint. He's talking about himself.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and what is the reason to not tell him besides you're worried that you're going to have to give him some of your millions of dollars?
Maybe, yeah.
I guess.
The only plausible motivation for not saying, no, you dumbass, I'm your dad, is I don't want to have to give you some money?
Or like, I don't want to I ran away for a reason.
Also, when he showed he was packing heat, this guy is so old that he must not have a lot of confidence in the fact that he's going to be able to retrieve the gun faster than this younger guy. And which is what happened later. I was like, you're like within striking distance of him. Like he could just tackle you and take the gun from you.
Personal bodyguards who he dispatches to find Walton Goggins in this relatively small resort, and then leaves himself exposed so that the man can just walk up and take the gun out of his pocket and shoot him in the chest.
Well, he'd already proved that he won't hurt him.
Yeah.
So fucking
by
stupid.
not having hurt him. This was the first
and
season.
By the way, what is happening in the picture that is taking place that is so injurious to Rick? Like, what is it about the moment of dad and his Thai wife taking pictures with an American celebrity that speaks to everything that was robbed of him? Is it just that they're happy? Like, what are we meant to believe that he's so completely incapable of having a rational thought there? And also, we could have saved this entire thing if the lady had just done the reasonable thing, which is like, oh, this person is having an actual mental health emergency. I should probably talk to him for 5 minutes and make the 22-year-old American who's just beaming with the energy and life force of the universe wait before he does his meditation hour that he clearly doesn't need.
Perhaps, but this is still entirely on Rick, his failing to process things in an appropriate way. I do wonder, to your point about like what is it about the picture taking threw him off? Maybe just the facade of decency when he knows like how cruel this old geezer is, and he's like, this fucking guy, how dare he? And he just,
or maybe it's just bad writing. Abe.
Perhaps.
Maybe it's just subpar writing from our boy Mike White. Sorry, Lori, what were you saying?
I don't know if it's the first time I've noticed or the first time it was a problem, but I was made very anxious by the night before everyone's about to travel literally to the other side of the world. No one is anxiously packing. Like, I'm looking at these people. It's like, oh, pina coladas. Like, no, you have to get up and go on a boat and probably a plane. Like, you need to pack. You need to make sure you have all of your things. You still don't have your phone. Don't forget your phone. Don't forget you don't have it. Like, it was very stressful for me to watch all 10 of these people just like, oh, we're leaving tomorrow. Enjoy our last night. No, your last night should be just like sleepless and miserable.
Anyway, for whatever reason, I just found most of the storylines this time around not nearly as compelling as the first two seasons. And I don't know. Don't just make a fourth season because HBO is going to pay you to make a fucking fourth season.
Oh, but what if he likes money?
The story, right?
Right.
Find the story first and then decide you're going to make the fucking fourth season.
Right. But I mean, all the stories are mostly, it's kind of similar themes throughout, just kind of plugging and playing. Like, just different locations, somebody dies, what happened,
Anyway, obviously I complained about this TV show a lot. You seem to enjoy it.
Yeah,
Am I wrong in my take
I
here?
mean, the criticisms are valid, but I still enjoy it, like, with whatever flaws you can find. There are some characters I don't like that well, like I said, Rick being chief among them. But everybody else is...
What was the point? What was the point of the pretty Thai girlfriend?
She
ultimately,
sucks.
Yeah, she just. Yeah, I think just the name that, because I guess she's like a very popular K-pop artist. Like, doesn't mean anything to us, but like apparently she's well known, and so they just kind of threw her in as like. I
thought for sure that they were going to do some sort of thing where like she was banging the Russian or she was banging Valentin or something, and like because. She's sort of in there as an instigating moment there where she's like how does Valentin find out that he knows?
Right.
And it might be that because he just told her that he knows something, like then she might have gone to Valentin for Valentin to then come back to Guy Talk to say, hey, do me a solid here, or me and my boys are going to die. Like to me, like there's something there where maybe that was originally written into the script where she had a more prominent negative role to play in Guy Talk's life.
But I mean, I guess, just the love interest component was enough to push him into the decisions he ultimately made, because were it not for her, he would have been some fucking Buddhist, whatever. Like, he would have got another job, just toiled away and did his peaceful thing. But instead, bang, 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 got the girl.
Yeah. All right. What's next on our television docket?
The zombies.
The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
We're going to have to watch.
And I want to watch that sad romance show. One Day? Whatever. It's on Netflix with the British kid.
Gotcha. All right. Well, this is a very long episode
Yeah,
of this
we're not
fucking
gonna
podcast.
do
We
the
can't
music
do the
one.
Billboard
That'll
one
be a
tonight.
different
We'll have
day.
to do that another night. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
Later.
I confirmed a thought that I've had forever. I've always said that moving is the worst of the first world problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's of all of the first world problems, moving is the fucking worst. The girl I work with, who grew up in a refugee camp in the Congo, has to move, and she's like, I hate this so much. It is so hard.
You
It
accumulated
is
so
so
much
miserable.
shit. Yeah.
And she said, especially in America, you have to change your address and tell everybody it's a different address. Like, I was like, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big advantage
Please feel sorry for us.
of living in a war-torn third world country, you just fucking pick up and go move to some other fucking
You
hovel.
take your backpack full of clothes that you own and you just go somewhere else. Like, she was so funny. She was like, I don't want to do it. It's like, I know, it sucks. She was like, you have to change everything. Yeah.
I mean,
That
there's
sucks.
something about, like, whatever captures your attention, basically, that's where it is. So, like, if there's something bigger, like if you're in a war-torn situation,
Totally.
like, the attention is there, so everything else pales in comparison. But if there's no that, then your attention now is on a new thing, and it's still,
But it's
your
not
brain is
even
not any
if
different.
there's no that.
Yeah.
If that's what it is, you don't have to move. It's
Right.
you're never in a situation where you have both of these things, where like you have existential
That's true.
crisis
Well,
and moving.
There's nobody in the fucking Gaza Strip is like sweating having to fucking move. Like, it's just not.
That is true.
It's just, inundated rivers posed the latest threat from persistent storms that have killed at least 23 people, 10 in Tennessee, since last week as they doused the region with heavy rain and spawned destructive tornadoes.
Maybe that's why they call it Tennessee.
Because of 10 dead in Tennessee? How many dead you got? 10, I see.
That's as far as I can count. It's probably more.
Yeesh. That's beyond the Strassman. Not even Strassman at his most callous.
Do you think there are Strassman early tapes, from the archive where he would make those kind of...
Yes. I bet those exist.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.